Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where this week we are jumping into a very, very important film where we'll explore its themes, its history, its filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. And there is a lot of influence from this film. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, host, and voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California. And really excited, Steve, for us to be walking into the world of L. Frank Baum with The Wizard of Oz on the same weekend that the sequel to Wicked for Good, is out in theater. So our timing, which is not always on point, our timing seems to be on point this time around.
Look, when you're doing movies that are all old films, like timing isn't always the first thing that pops into our minds. Plus, our episodes end up being, well, we thought it was going to be 2 parts. It ended up being 3 parts. So timing gets thrown out all the time. This one in particular, this is one we've been talking about doing this movie since literally the very beginning of the Cine-Files.
Yeah.
It's come up multiple times. We discussed it multiple times. We kind of said, oh, yeah, we should get to that soon. And it really was finally our advisory board who in several meetings said, no, you need to do The Wizard of Oz. And of course, the only way to join the advisory board is by going to patreon.com/thecine-files, where you could also get ad-free versions of the show or combined versions of those 2 or 3 or 4-part shows into one giant episode, as well as our Cine-Files shorts. And that is at patreon.com/thecine-files.
Yeah, for those of you who might have missed it earlier this week, we dropped the full compilation of all our episodes on Back to the Future in honor of its 40th anniversary. And we hope you joined us for our live show, which was available as well. And another way you can support us here on the show is when you listen to the show and you hear the commercials during those breaks. If there are products or services that catch your eye or catch your ear that you want to try out, we'd love it if you reached out to them and used our code, because our code gives you big discounts. Plus, it signifies to those people there that they should keep supporting us here on the Cine-Files. So we'd love it if you guys are inclined to do that as well.
Absolutely. And this movie, I got to say, everyone, we always try to do movies that are interesting, fascinating films to discuss. We've discussed big films and small films, independent films, big action films, comedy, old films, new films. But every once in a while, we end up going to what are the great films.
Yes.
The most important films in the history of cinema. And I think The Wizard of Oz 100% qualifies. It's listed as number 6 on the AFI Top 100 list. It has probably been more seen and more translated possibly than any other film in history. It's a little bit hard to kind of get the exact numbers because it's hard to know how many people have seen The Wizard of Oz. But based on how widespread it is worldwide and how many times it played on television and over and over and over again, this might be the most seen feature film in history.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, Joe Mankiewicz, when he did his introduction on the TCM app, kind of highlighted that how revered and viewed this movie is in terms of the impact and the amount of times that it's been viewed by people through multiple generations, even all the way up into 2025. It's not a coincidence, Steve, that when the people at the Sphere, which we touched on during our recent board meeting, were looking at a movie with which to kind of play around with AI and showcase for people that would excite people to see in a new format and in a new way, they chose Wizard of Oz to screen at the Sphere. Now, whatever your issues are with the AI approach, that's besides the point. It's that they chose this movie because they knew the impact this film still carries for multiple generations and is still carrying today, because the messages are universal, the characters are very evergreen, and the journey itself still resonates with so many children who discover it at young ages and hold on to it into adulthood.
It's absolutely true. And it's funny, there's something I wanted to say about this film, and it really relates to the first question I always ask. But this question is one which I am absolutely certain you and I have the same answer to, which is, how did you first come to this film?
Yeah, as a kid, watching it on TV with my parents. Absolutely. This is the film that, this was the one you could sit down and watch with your folks. The whole family would sit around. And of course, this was the time where you couldn't watch it on YouTube or order it on demand. It had to come on when it came on. And there was a big, big thing about it. And I think our school, if I remember correctly, our elementary school let us know, okay, it's showing at ABC or CBS, whatever it was, at this time. You have to watch. This is the time to watch it. And so you go home, tell your parents, they put it in the calendar, and then we all got together and watched it. And I remember just being absolutely blown away by this film. The songs in the soundtrack were amazing, and just the characters themselves finding myself really enjoying and savoring the performances and the characters as they were portrayed on screen. And of course, all led by the great Judy Garland.
I mean, for me, obviously the story is totally the same. It was every year.
Yeah.
And again, people who are, of later generations do not understand, because before VCRs, the significance of Wizard of Oz is going to be on TV. And half the country would watch it.
Yep.
And this is the thing that I was thinking about is in a way, I would say The Wizard of Oz has to be the first great film I saw. You know what I mean? I didn't see Citizen Kane till later. I didn't see Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, Lawrence of Arabia, any of those, Seven Samurai. I didn't see those till much later. Right. I saw Wizard of Oz before I remember seeing Wizard of Oz. I'm sure that I was a baby in front of that TV at some point. And I think because of that, and this is the thought I had, is of course, I always knew this is one of the great films, but I didn't think about it as one of the great films in the way I thought about Citizen Kane or Lawrence of Arabia or The Seven Samurai, or The Godfather, because this was a film that had always existed. It was a kid's movie. It's part of my childhood, not part about art. You know what I mean? So I've never really gone and studied The Wizard of Oz in the way I studied some of those other films.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with you. I've always kind of seen this as, yes, a classic film, but a little bit of a kid's film. And so I haven't necessarily given it the same serious weight that I would give Citizen Kane or The Maltese Falcon or some of these great classics from back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. But preparing for us to do the show, I had to say a little bit to myself, hey, dummy, you should have revered this thing in the same level, because there's a lot going on here beyond just the childish enjoyment of the movie. There's a lot of commentary being made. There's an incredible amount of effort and work being done by some incredibly brilliant artists in creating this film. And so there's much more reverence for this movie. I should have had much more reverence for this movie than I have. So I absolutely hear you, Steve. And it's been a great eye-opening experience, because we rarely get to do that with films quite in this way.
It's a weird thing, because there are the movies that I know like the back of my hand that are great films because I watched them over and over again. And then there's this movie, which I had also watched over and over again, but hadn't really thought of it in that way. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've seen The Wizard of Oz. It's certainly more than 20. It might be more than 50. I really don't know. I've seen it many times. And here's the thing about this too, is that The Wizard of Oz, the books, before we even get to the movie, is a true fandom in the way that Star Trek is a fandom, Sherlock Holmes is a fandom, Harry Potter, Star Wars, it really exists. And so, and the thing is, my mom and my grandparents had their copies of the books. And so when I started reading, these are among the first books that I read because I discovered I love fantasy. And Wizard of Oz, I think this is even, this is before I read The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or things like that. I was reading those original Oz books, which are weird and silly and goofy. And I want to talk a little bit about L. Frank Baum, the author, because it is, reading his biography is just fascinating in terms of, it's like you see the building blocks of everything that will much later eventually become The Wizard of Oz, because he's 45 years old when he writes The Wizard of Oz. I mean, he's been through a lot of life. Right. So he was born in 1856 in New York. He is one of 9 children, of which 4 of them died very, very young. Children dying and people dying around L. Frank Baum is something we're going to see over and over and over again. He grew up during the Civil War. His brother was involved in the war. His name's Adam, I think, and was traumatized by the war. And as a kid, Frank Baum saw men coming home missing limbs and with artificial hooks and metal hands and things like that. That's one little piece. Because of all the deaths in his family, this is the rise of the seance culture, where con men are basically using mystical things and theatrical tricks to manipulate people into believing that they can reach the spirit world. And his mom was very involved in that and going after those things. His dad, by the way, accidentally shot his mom, or quote unquote accidentally shot his mom. I'm not entirely sure of the details.
Whoa.
He was, as you would imagine, a dreamy, sort of undisciplined kid. Yeah. He loved fairy tales, of course, Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen. Alice in Wonderland came out when he was a young man, and that becomes the biggest thing in the world. By the way, this whole time he's just making up fantasies and stories, and he apparently had a recurring dream of a scarecrow that could move.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. His dad, it sounds like his dad was always kind of looking over the next hill, the next big deal, the next thing, you know?
Okay.
And he at one point bought a small printing press. I'm not entirely sure why, but the printing press ended up being for L. Frank Baum like the Super 8 camera was for Steven Spielberg and the Coen brothers. So he and his brother in high school started printing newspapers and short stories and all these things because, and this is what you're going to see throughout this guy's life. He wants the center of attention. He wants to be telling stories. He loves theatrical things. He loves exciting things. Also, when he's in high school, a huge tornado hits the town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it's all the pieces of the Wizard of Oz come along in his life.
It's almost ironic because the opening of the film is very meta in foreshadowing what we're going to see once we get to Oz. So it's his life is kind of influencing what we're going to see in the opening. Yeah, so it's fascinating.
The biggest event in the year for L. Frank Baum was once a year when the Barnum and Bailey Circus came along.
Oh, wow.
And he was obsessed with P.T. Barnum, the showman, the con man.
Right.
Both. Like the most amazing, incredible thing you could ever see in your life, lots of which may or may not be true. Which is the Wizard of Oz,
yeah,
you know?
Totally.
By the way, at some point, his dad goes from being a traveling salesman to a traveling preacher. And this is during the era of the big revival shows and the big religious movements, you know? And again, all of this is feeding into where we're heading. At 20 years old, he starts breeding poultry and then naturally prints a journal of poultry breeding on his printing press. He sold fireworks. He dressed as Santa every Christmas and talked to people in the front yard, just randomly. He would be Santa and because he wanted to be in the show. He wanted to be in the theater, always loved the theater. There's a local theater and he says, hey, how can I act in your theater? And they say, listen, we'll give you a part if you just get us all the costumes we need. And he says, okay. He's an industrious young man and he goes and gets all the costumes. They did not give him a part.
You bastards.
But he's got the acting bug. So now he's in New York doing shows. And his favorite thing is any kind of show that has stagecraft, magic tricks, fire, people disappearing, people reappearing, people flying from the ceiling, coming up from the floor. These are all the things that he really likes. And he's a working actor in New York. Starts to make, and what I picture, by the way, you remember at the beginning of Godfather 2 where they go to see that play?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think L. Frank Baum is doing in the 1870s, 1880s.
Right.
You know, in New York. And then he's finally put together enough money that he puts together his own show, that he's the star, he's producing, huge special effects, great spectacle. The theater burns down. He loses everything.
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
Wow.
Then
Don't do this. No, I'm going to keep doing it.
He does.
Man.
His whole life is he's just chasing after another thing. He marries Maud Gage, who's the daughter of Matilda Jocelyn Gage, who's a famous suffragette.
Yeah.
You know, and so women's rights becomes really central to his work. Dorothy obviously being the key example. And then New York, it's out. We're going to the Dakota territory because that's where I'm going to make my fortune. And he's going to go. They move to Aberdeen in the Dakota territory, which is the Midwest. And that's where, you know, some of the Kansas stuff comes from. Right. And he is going to open Baum's Bazaar, the most fabulous, the most amazing store ever in the Midwest, products from all over the world, the greatest people of Europe, the greatest materials. He puts out so much advertising and so much marketing for this department store that's going to be the most amazing thing in the world. 1,000 people showed up on opening day. They were so excited. Wow. But he could never quite make his pay, you know, like, because his dreams were always bigger than what he could make money for. And so after a few years, the store goes bankrupt. But one of the things that's happening is that he loves to entertain. Kids love to come into this fabulous store. And the most entertaining person at the fabulous store is L. Frank Baum. And he loves telling stories to the kids. Right. And one of the things that starts happening, his thing becomes, kids would come up because they knew if they asked him a question, it was like a game of yes and, that he would come up with a cool story on the spot. So they would say, what happened to Little Red Riding Hood after the wolf went away? Or what happened to the ugly duckling after it became a swan? Or and he would make up the story. And this went on for years and years.
That's amazing.
But Yeah, but the store went out of business, so now he's the editor of the local newspaper.
Oh, so it moves on to that. Okay.
Yep. And this is about when the 1893 Chicago World's Fair happened, which is, it's really funny. It's a seminal moment for a whole bunch of different people in different ways. Huge technological displays, architectural displays, artistic displays, cultural displays. This is where the first Ferris wheel is. And he went there and was just absolutely blown away. And there's also, by the way, although Disney did not go to I don't think he was alive yet in 1893. Yeah. His father went to the 1893 World's Fair, and descriptions of it, I think, are very influential in Disneyland later on. You know, this is a big deal. So he sees this and he goes, oh, this is great. And part of it, too, is it's all fake because it's all this architecture that's just facades, you know, which, again, is what the Wizard of Oz, I mean, like, it so fits in. And he goes, you know what people aren't really taking advantage of? Window displays in stores. I can use my theatrical ability and all of the tricks that I've learned to create the most fabulous, moving, dynamic window displays, which he does. And they're very successful in the Midwest. He becomes, and so then he decides to publish a journal on window displays. I mean, this is what the guy keeps doing. And finally, and he's still telling stories, and his mom says, hey, why don't you write one of these stories down? So he finally writes a short story down and sells it. Then he sells a whole book of short stories called Father Goose. Oh. And this is, it's basically like the kinds of little things he's been telling to kids. So for instance, I'll read you two poems. One is The Wily Prince. This is from Father Goose. A prince once wooed a princess fair with costly gems and golden hair, but she preferred a humble clerk who did his sums and kept his work. This is The Grown-Up Ogre. An ogre once grew tired of fright and took to reading every night. The children laughed to see him so, but books tamed him from head to toe. It is a very workman American twist on classic sort of fairy tale ideas.
Yeah. Succinct as well, which is good. Yeah.
Nice and tight. And and this sells 100,000 copies. Mark Twain was a big fan of the Father Goose book.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Surprised. That's not surprising at all, considering how he also appreciated succinct things in his approach to it. Yeah, makes sense.
And in the late 1800s is when movies start to happen. And in particular, the films of George Méliès, which is From the Earth to the Moon. Right. And they're all these fantastic, and Baum went to see them, and these blew his mind. This is everything he's excited about. And this is, so we've got, in this journey, we have people with artificial limbs. We have P.T. Barnum, the con man who maybe it's true and maybe it's not. We have the most amazing city of the future. We have all of the seances, the fakery, all of these elements, the fairy tales lead to this moment where he starts working on The Wizard of Oz. Oz, by the way, comes from, he looked at a reference book in a store, and it was O to Z. And that is where Oz, that is how he got the Oz. And unfortunately, another tragic death in his family is his niece, Dorothy, died very, very young. And that is why Dorothy is the main character in The Wizard of Oz.
Wow. You know, I just saw Hamnet, and that is, how that's a story about how Shakespeare is influenced by the loss of his son to create Hamlet. And so it's interesting that you hear that there's a connection here for Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, as an homage to his own niece. Yeah.
The book's a big hit, needless to say. Millions of copies, and they make a big musical play out of it, which he has nothing to do with. And here's some of the things that happen. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. He battles and they won't listen to him. So for instance, this is what some of the things in the play. Toto was replaced by Imogen the cow.
Ooh.
There was also Trixie the waitress and a streetcar operator. The Wicked Witch of the West was out. And instead, it's a story of four friends usurping the wizard and being hunted as traitors to Pastoria II, the right-wing king of Oz. Whoa. Plus, there were references to Teddy Roosevelt, John D. Rockefeller. It sounds wild. Wow. Huge hit on Broadway. Huge. Wow. Touring companies. Massive hits. He writes the second Oz book. He writes Ozma's Oz's third book. And then he says, screw those guys. They ruined my thing. I'm going to make the play myself. Got lots of directing experience, lots of theatrical experience. Bomb. He lost all his money again and had to sell the rights to the Oz books.
Oh, no.
Yes, because he was bankrupt. Fortunately, he had a couple of things in his wife's name, so not all of it got given away. He does a slideshow lecture of the Oz books, which might be the first synced sound to film ever done in public.
Oh, wow.
Also, disaster, loses tons of money. He wants to build an Oz-themed amusement park. It's crazy. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Then he moves to Hollywood because the only way to capture his vision is through film, and he starts the Oz Film Manufacturing Company and produces movies with appearances from people like Harold Lloyd and Hal Roach.
Wow.
Show up in his films.
Wow.
And he makes Oz films.
Determination.
Never quits, man.
Never quits, man. Some people just believe. No matter what you throw at them, they just believe.
Want to know how his movie studio did?
Went bankrupt.
Yeah. Yep. And he kept trying to write other books. Like, he kept trying to write adult books and other books, and none of them sold. Yeah. And he kept having to crawl back to the Oz books. And so he kept going, hey, I'm back again for another Oz book. And he ended up writing 14 books and continued to write them until his death in 1919.
Wow.
And I just found him there's so much there that relates to Oz. And I also what's interesting to me is there are very few worlds, properties, characters that have been created that have really captured the world's imagination. Oz obviously being one of them. Sherlock Holmes, Tolkien, Harry Potter, Star Wars. Those are ones. What's interesting to me is, with the exception of Star Wars, all of those were made by people whose creating that thing wasn't their first profession. So Arthur Conan Doyle's a doctor. Right. Tolkien's a professor. All these people made them later in life.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling had she's in her 40s and had lots of reversals before she started writing Harry Potter. Yeah. And there's also like Peter Pan and Winnie the Pooh that are also sort of these older people creating these things that lived on in this way that very few people have ever created, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, back then, this wasn't like a viable career you could walk into. Not saying like nowadays that everyone gets booked on stuff. It's more
you and I certainly don't.
Well, yeah. It's more a matter of the fact that, like, it was so hard back then that you had to really have a vision and a belief in order to achieve the things that you could achieve. And I also think I don't have a fully formed theory on this, but I do think that certain people are touched by a gift. And I don't mean a gift like an amazing skill. I just mean like they have a purpose. And for whatever reason, they are given that purpose, and they are given the resolve to follow through on that purpose. It's very biblical in this way, right? Like, I mean, Moses goes through all kinds of stuff to try to lead his people to the promised land, but he just believes that God has talked to him. He believes that this is what he has to do. And so he is determined to do so. He turns his back on a life of richness, a life of wealth. He could have easily just been the Pharaoh's child and become the Pharaoh himself at some point, unless, Yul Brynner had something to say about it. But like, there's certainly possibilities there, but he chose the harder path because he felt that there was something he had to do. And I just think certain people are called to create certain things or do certain things, and life works out in that way for them to be able to do it because they were destined to do it. Their date with destiny. And it seems like L. Frank Baum was put on the earth to create The Wizard of Oz and the Oz books because nothing else really worked out for him except this, and possibly his marriage, except this. And so there's just a gift. And that's just something that you can't explain, but it just is,
It's funny. Like, I agree with every fact that you said. And it's the interpretation, because to me, it's like, is it destiny? Because it feels like destiny. I agree. Like, that's how it feels. Like, well, he fail, and collected all these various things, and all of that came together to make this thing.
Right.
But what we don't know is all the L. Frank Baums who got 99% of the way there and didn't actually produce it.
Yeah. Because they weren't chosen. And I know it sucks. Oh, I know it hurts to hear that, people. I know it's true, but sometimes you're just not chosen no matter how much you want it. And that's the horrible truth of life. And I just think he was one of those guys that he was one of the chosen ones because it got to see the light of day, and and people loved it and revered it. That's just how I look at it. Nobody has to agree with me. It's just
frankly, that's how movies work.
Yeah.
I mean, the vast majority of movies are about chosen ones, Dorothy included, like that this person is the one who's destined to do that thing,
Yeah, and like the character that Margaret, I don't know what the character is before. I forget what the character is before Margaret Hamilton becomes the witch. But I'm sure Dorothy's dog wasn't the only dog that she went after in the town.
It's Elmira Gulch, by the way.
That's it, Gulch. Yes, it's an unremarkable name because I prefer the witch, but Gulch is correct. Yeah.
So we've done the pre-production. Now I'm going to give you the pre-production, which is there'd been talk about doing another Wizard of Oz forever. There'd been a bunch during the silent era. Samuel Goldwyn owned the rights, but nobody was quite ready to push the button. And then the big thing that changed everything was 1937 Snow White. Because Snow White is the biggest movie in the world. And suddenly all the studios are going, why don't we have family entertainment? They didn't have the phrase 4-quadrant yet, but that's what they're suddenly looking at. And Louis B. Mayer, who's the head of MGM, which is the biggest studio in Hollywood, wants to do it. But MGM at this moment is a little bit at sea because the boy genius, Irving Thalberg, who they had found, was running MGM. And he was, I forget how young he is, but really young.
It's like 28.
Like 28. And then he died unexpectedly. And suddenly L.B. Mayer didn't really know what to do. At the same time, he's got a young musician, songwriter, Arthur Freed, who had started as a vaudeville performer. He sang with the Marx Brothers, started writing songs, and he wrote songs that we might know like Singing in the Rain and Broadway Rhythm and All I Do Is Dream of You. And he was like, I want to be a producer. I want to move up. And he goes to L.B. Mayer, and L.B. Mayer says, well, what do you want? Get me a property. What do you want to produce? And he says, The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But L.B. Mayer is like, I don't know about this. Samuel Goldwyn, different studio, owns the picture, and I don't have Irving Thalberg anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, Arthur Freed, because spoiler alert, he is going to become a producer, and he creates what ends up becoming known as the Freed Unit at MGM, who produced some of the great musicals of all time. After this, they went on to do Meet Me in St. Louis, On the Town, Showboat, American in Paris, Singing in the Rain, and Gigi. So Arthur Freed has a good run after this.
Yeah, Arthur Freed and Betty Compton. Yeah, that's right. Betty was a part of those musicals. Yeah.
But L.B. Mayer's still not into it. And finally, he gets a successor to Irving Thalberg in Melvin Leroy. And Melvin Leroy is going to take over operations of the studio. And he says, Melvin, what would you like to do? And Melvin Leroy says, ever since I first read it at 8 years old, I want to do The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
He still had his copies. Yep. And so now we have Arthur Freed and Melvin Leroy, and that's the team that makes this happen. They bought the rights from Samuel Goldwyn, which, by the way, they had planned it as an Eddie Cantor vehicle. I'm assuming like the Scarecrow or something, or the Tin Man. I don't know.
Probably the Scarecrow. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. So we've said it many times, but like people think that it's obvious how you should make a movie, but it really isn't, and it takes a lot of time in figuring out. Some of the early scripts sound real interesting.
Yeah.
There were, I think, 14 or 15 different writers on this at one point or another. Yeah. And one of the things that happened in the early scripts was like, it's so funny because I hear this exact same argument today. People are too smart and too cynical and too realistic to really accept fantasy, Right. So we have to give an explanation. So what they decided was that the Scarecrow wasn't a scarecrow. His nickname was Scarecrow, but he was actually an out-of-work human who was hired to scare crows away from farms. The woodman was a criminal whose punishment was to wear a suit of tin over his body. Yeah, these do not sound like good ideas.
I know, but I do want to say this because I think it's important for people to understand this idea. Some people have this idea of Hollywood back in that time, and it's like this wide-eyed, optimistic, childish type approach. There's a lot of darkness. There has always been darkness, and the approaches you're laying down, Steve, are some dark approaches. Like somebody whose punishment is to wear a suit made of tin. This other person, this unemployed guy who was hired to scare crows out of a field. What a horrible job, So there's things that have a little bit of darkness to them. I have to make it really clear. Like this is something that was around for such a long time because people act like dark themes and dark subject matter nowadays is like groundbreaking. It's like it's always been around. It's always been around. It just changes to adapt to the society. You know?
Well, and I think it's always a tension whenever you're making anything of like, well, how far do we turn the knob towards dark, and how much how many people are we going to alienate? How many people are going to protest? Are they going to bring their kids? Is it too childlike and adults won't come? And you're sitting there trying to figure all that stuff out. I said there are a bunch of writers on it. Herman Mankiewicz was one of the writers on The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
Yeah. No, this is the studio days. So it isn't like, it's like we're going to bring in whoever we need to bring in to make this thing work. And it sounds like it was Arthur Freed who really kind of tossed all that craziness. And they were talking about lots of composers and lyricists, and including all the big Hammerstein and Hart and Kern and all those guys, plus all of the Gershwins and Coplands and all the, and the composers they went with are successful Broadway composers, but not huge. This is Herbert Stothart, who did the music, and the lyrics are Edgar Harburg. And it sounds like finding them is really what kind of made the movie sort of lock in. And the other person that came on this time is, by the way, one of the other writers, Ogden Nash, the poet, was writing on The Wizard of Oz at one point. But it's Noel Langley who is sort of the most important main writer. He comes in. There are several changes he makes that I think are great. One is he changes the silver slippers from the book to ruby slippers. There's also when you get in the weeds on Wizard of Oz, there's all this talk on what things mean, and one of them is that the reason they were silver slippers is that it's a comment on coming off the gold standard. I know, it's nuts, right?
How can we make this topical? Well, the gold standard.
Yeah. But he changed them to ruby slippers. But the big thing that Noah Langley does, and it's certainly something we will discuss, is everything was a dream. That idea is not in the book. That is a movie idea.
Okay.
He also adds the line, "It's no place like home." Now we got to cast this movie.
Yeah.
So who are we going to cast to play Dorothy? Obviously, the biggest child star in the world,
Shirley Temple,
who it seems like kind of lobbied for it. There's film of Shirley Temple making references to The Wizard of Oz, like hint, hint, I might want to do this. But from the beginning, Arthur Freed was looking at a young actress named Judy Garland.
Yeah, Judy Garland. What an incredible actress. And of course, if you have any knowledge of classic movies, just the name Judy Garland will elicit such a strong reaction from you because of the journey she went on. You know, she started really young. She was part of a vaudeville act with her two sisters called the Gum Sisters, and then signed a contract, Steve, with MGM at 13 years old in 1935. And she got immediately, of course, as you said, this was during the contract days. So she was playing small parts in a bunch of films like the Broadway Melody of 1938, Thoroughbreds Don't Cry. And then eventually in 1939 is when she lands the role of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. And clearly, as you said, Arthur Reed must have seen something in Judy to make him want to put her as the lead in this movie, because she had done her work in these smaller parts in these films.
So one of the things is, this is a child actor, and Judy Garland is one of the cautionary tales, I would say. It's one of the things where you go, this is where we started to discover that this glamorous, amazing life that everyone would fantasize about wanting maybe ain't such a good life. She is funny. She describes her mom, who was a stage mom, as a woman that was incredibly mean because she had no talent. And that sentence right there,
brutal,
is a lot. But L.B. Mayer was not into Judy Garland doing this part.
Yeah.
He described her as his little hunchback. The stuff going on around Judy Garland at this time is so brutal.
I think her and Marilyn Monroe, Steve, are the two women. Of course, there are plenty of women that were abused by Hollywood. But certainly Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland are these two women that are just universally beloved by people who love older movies and come with this an unusual amount of tragedy all around them, dealing with drugs and the abuse that they experienced from men, from the people who were above them, all of the things that they experienced, even from other actresses in their journeys as actors through their time, and There is a comeback story for Judy right before she passes on with Summerstock, but there isn't quite the same comeback story, sadly, with Marilyn, other than the Misfits. And so I think there's just something about those two that stand out as examples of how old Hollywood wasn't as cool as people like to believe it was, you know?
What's so interesting, I'd never put those two together, but now that you do, what's interesting is it's like they're at the opposite poles in a way, because it's when Judy showed up to MGM, she is put into the stable because this is, they just sign all these young actresses onto contract, and she's in a stable with Lana Turner, Rosalind Russell, Maureen O'Sullivan, Deanna Durbin, Jean Harlow. These are all spectacularly beautiful women.
Completely different than Judy. Yeah,
exactly. And so she's looking around at these glamour women, and that's not what she is. And I think she's a beautiful woman, but she's, as you said, 13, 14, 15 years old, looking at these women and being called the hunchback, and constant things about her weight and her appearance, which we'll get into more of these as we get along in the film. And that right there is just built to develop insecurity and self-loathing and all of the things that, lead to you getting fucked up,
And it was an ironic thing with Judy because, she's clearly the girl next door. That's the trope that she is hired to be, right? These other women were hired to be like, the attractive sexual goddesses that a guy would want to aspire for, right? But Judy is the one that you might be able to get. And so I think in that way, she carves out her own particular niche that makes her so beloved by so many people, regardless of gender, through her entire career, and I think that's another thing that is a gift. Sometimes not looking like everybody else is actually a gift in the world of acting. It just, unfortunately, some of the stuff she had to experience in order to achieve her fame was very tough.
Well, honestly, as I read those names of very, very famous actresses from that era, my guess is if you're not a super film buff, most of those names didn't mean anything to you, and the name Judy Garland still does.
Absolutely, great point. Yeah.
But you mentioned the film Broadway Melody that she was in. Well, all the songs in Broadway Melody were written by Arthur Freed. And so he, including Dear Mr. Gable, which is the one she sang. And this is what had Arthur on the Judy train. And L.B. Mayer was like, I want Shirley Temple, Shirley Temple's a huge star. The size of her is huge. And Freed just like, I don't think she can do the singing. I'll tell you what we should do. She's got a live performance, Shirley Temple, down at some club. Let's send down so-and-so, who's MGM's super music expert guy, to evaluate her singer in a live show. Because when you're seeing it in a movie, that's all pre-recorded. It's easier to do.
Right.
The guy goes to see the live show, comes back, reports to Louis B. Mayer that the vocal issues with Shirley Temple are insurmountable. Yeah. There is no way she would be capable of singing the score that is being written for this film.
Yeah.
So finally, we got Judy Garland.
Judy Garland at 16. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you're watching that Over the Rainbow performance, she is 16 when she is singing that song. It won the Academy Award. Let that sink in. This was a talent. This was a talent from the beginning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The movie is budgeted for $2.7 million, which is massive at this time. It is not the biggest budget in a film ever, because that movie is also being made at the same time, which is Gone with the Wind, which is $3.85 million. That's so the Wizard of Oz is about $65 million in today's money. That's a huge, huge budget for this film.
And both those films directed by the same person, right?
Which is that's part of what's crazy about it. Yeah.
Victor Fleming. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
So we go into production. And by the way, Melvin Leroy, who's the new head of the studio, goes, hey, can I also direct this? And LB's like, no, you got to get a director. So they hire a director.
James Gunn, you can't direct this as well.
You cannot direct. Exactly. So they hire a director named Richard Thorpe.
Oh.
That none of us have ever heard of.
Yeah, right.
And he starts working. Dorothy, as written in the book, has beautiful blonde hair. Lots of makeup. She looks very, very glamorous.
Whoa.
It sounds like it was terrible. It sounds like it was awful.
Did they put her in a Judy in a blonde wig and all of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and shot for 2 full weeks.
Oof.
And here's the thing, and they're looking at the footage, and Melvin Leroy's looking at it, it's like, this is not good. It was really cheesy, over the top, silly. Judy seems terrible, not acting well. Because what happened, it seems like, is they made her glamorous with the blonde hair, lots of makeup, much more beautiful. And then that dictated what her performance was. She's like, oh, they want me to be a glamorous starlet. So she's acting like a glamorous starlet. I mean, she's, as you said, she's 16.
Yeah.
You know? So this is going really bad. And what saved them, strangely enough, I mean, maybe they would have fired Richard Thorpe anyway, but they had an issue. And that issue I had heard about as a kid. It might be among the first pieces of movie trivia I knew, but I didn't really understand what it was, which is, as a fan of the Beverly Hillbillies, I learned fairly young in life that Buddy Epson was the original actor playing the Tin Man.
Yes. Yes.
And I had heard, again, when I was 10, that he had an allergic reaction to the makeup. And so he couldn't play the Tin Man and he was replaced. That's not the story. I mean, that is the story, but that's not what happened. So first of all, they cast this thing. They cast, 3 basically vaudeville Broadway comedians that they really, really liked, that had worked with Arthur Freed and with the composers before. And they are Ray Bolger, who's a huge comedian, been in The Great Ziegfeld, known for his long limbs and his great movement. And he'd been on a contract with MGM for a while and hadn't really hit. They had Buddy Epson, who they loved, and they had Bert Lahr. And they went great. Ray Bolger is going to play the Tin Man. Buddy Epson is the Scarecrow, and Bert Lahr will be the Lion. Bolger had dreamt of being the Scarecrow. He loved the books too. Always wanted to be the Scarecrow. Thinks I'm going to be wasted as the Tin Man. That's not what I do, which I think he's right. When you look at how he moves, it's right for him to be the Scarecrow. So he and his wife basically started a campaign to say, I want to be the Scarecrow. And what he says is he had nothing against Epson. This is a quote from him. I had nothing against Epson as a man or a performer. In fact, I admired him a great deal. I just thought of the Scarecrow as a man without a brain, and that fit me.
How very self-deprecating. Yeah.
It's such a quote that he came up with later on to use, and probably used it over and over again.
Oh, I totally fucked Buddy. But here's a self-deprecating story about how I took the role.
And for Buddy, I mean, the Scarecrow is a slightly bigger part, but it's, they're 3 relatively equal parts. But
I don't think Buddy would have done as good of a job as Ray. There's just something about Ray's childlike innocence that Buddy never really possessed when you watch him in some of the older stuff.
But Buddy said, "Look, I'm a working actor, parts apart, whatever. I'll be the Tin Man." But they hadn't figured out. So they figured out the makeup, and the makeup was this. They used aluminum dust. Literally the dust of metal. And they put it all over his face. And they had kind of tested it because things were kind of tested back at this era. It wasn't quite as safety conscious as we are today. And they put it on their faces and this seems fine. But what they didn't think about was that they had it on for 10 minutes or an hour.
Right.
Buddy is going to have it on all day, day after day after day for 12, 14, 16, 18 hours. And he's a dancer, which means he's breathing heavily all the time. And there's aluminum dust that's when he moves his body, dust goes up in the air and he breathes it in. Right. When I, as a kid, had heard he had an allergic reaction to the makeup, I thought he got a rash. That's not what happened. What happened is, slowly but surely, he starts to not feel good. Day 2, day 3, he's out of breath.
Oh, shit.
He's wheezing. And all of the crew and the director go, he's malingering. He's lazy. This is a lazy actor.
Right.
And so he gets in his ego, and I don't know. I mean, dancers, dancers are the most in shape fucking people in the world. Yep. Dancers are amazing. And so he is not out of shape, but he is wheezing and he says I got to sit down. I'm sorry, I can't shoot yet. I need another minute. And they're ridiculing him and mocking him. And he's just I got to suck it up because the show must go on until he collapses. Because he cannot get oxygen into his lungs. His lungs have been so infected and so damaged that he's barely processing oxygen at all. He almost died. He spent 6 weeks in the hospital, mostly on oxygen. I mean, this almost killed him. This was not the allergic reaction in my mind. They made fun of him until he almost danced himself to death. That's what happened.
They're like, hey, Jack Haley, you're up. Yikes, man. That's horrible.
It is, but it is it's because they had to switch the parts that they fired the director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because they just said, you know what? We throw out that whole 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's like just what happened with Daredevil, where they were like, well, we had this break because of the writer's strike. We took a look at the dailies. This is not the show we want to do. You guys are fired. We're starting all over again. So yeah, sometimes these things happen for a reason.
So naturally, we need to get a new director. So who are we going to hire? But George Cukor.
Oh, why not? Fantastic.
So we bring in George Cukor, not exactly to direct. What they brought, because he was about to start on Gone with the Wind.
Right.
So, but he has a little bit of time. And so it sounds like a buddy, like, hey, can you come over and look at what we have and help out? And so George Cukor watches the footage. Apparently the word he used was that he was appalled. He redoes all the makeup, particularly with Judy, dumps the blonde wig. And this is the thing. He goes to Judy Garland and he says, you're just a girl from Kansas. You're just yourself. Be yourself. That's it. And that's what clicked for her,
Wow.
And he does 2 days of work on the film. He doesn't shoot anything. He doesn't direct any actors. He completely changes the movie in 2 days.
Wow.
And then he's gone.
He is an incredible director, as you said, he was initially on Gone with the Wind, but he goes on to do, because he gets replaced, obviously, by Victor Fleming. He goes on to do Philadelphia Story and Gaslight and Born Yesterday and A Star is Born and My Fair Lady. So, this guy, and before he even got on to Gone with the Wind, he had done Little Women, which was very revered, Dinner at 8 and David Copperfield, and Romeo and Juliet from back then. So this is a guy who's very gifted. So they brought him in for a couple of days. He made the right adjustments at the right time. And as you said, then he's gone. Like almost like a little wizard coming in for just a second to fix things, and then off he goes.
And so now we bring in Victor Fleming, who sounds like he was the go-to fix-it guy, which obviously is what's going to happen with Gone with the Wind, is that he had been working in the film industry since the silent era. He had been a stuntman, a lab guy, a cameraman, an editor. He'd done all the stuff that people felt he could direct anything.
Right.
But he was pretty cynical. And what happened was he had just had kids right before Wizard of Oz. And so he went, like, if this had come to him 2 years earlier, he doesn't think he could do it.
Wow.
But having kids is what really changed it.
That's amazing. And he has a nice little run here, too, because you've got Treasure Island in 1934, then Captain's Courageous in 37, then Wizard of Oz, then Gone with the Wind, then Jekyll and Hyde, and even does Joan of Arc, a version of Joan of Arc at the end there. So, some interesting films that he's done during this period in his life as he's about to stop making films 9 years later.
I think finally, after perhaps our longest pre-production in the history of the Cine-Files, we can get into The Wizard of Oz.
Let's do it.
So, we start off in sepia. You know what I didn't realize is when you and I watched it on TV, the odds are the opening was black and white.
Yes, 100%. 100% black and white. It wasn't until years later that I saw that it was sepia originally. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you had this experience. There were times, and I think this is true because I kind of checked that when they aired it at different times, they did slightly different cuts because the length of the commercials or whatever. Yeah. So there were scenes when I was a kid where I'd be like, I don't remember that scene, or wait, isn't there a scene missing? Yeah. And it's like my experience in watching Star Trek which I had seen mostly cut down for TV, and then later saw these. Where did this scene come from? And during the opening, of course, we have like what's essentially an overture where we hear all the themes, and then we see for nearly 40 years, this story has given faithful service to the young in heart, and time has been powerless to put its kindly philosophy out of fashion. To those of you who have been faithful to it in return, and to the young in heart, we dedicate this picture. It's weird that it's young in heart, and it just sounds strange to me.
Yeah. This seems to me like, as you said, Mervyn LeRoy had loved this since he was 5 years old. So this little message in front is almost speaking to the other adults in the audience who have always loved this story as well. So I think because you rarely see these kinds of like intros before a movie, even during the classic era. So there was clear intention to honor the power of the book and the effect that it had on people growing up.
Well, we've seen this a lot in recent years. This is a big deal where people have, it's like you go to Barbie or you go to any of the like properties that are now being adapted in one way for film. Yeah. And there is real nervousness, of like, are we going to get this right? Because there is a fandom out there that will not be pleased,
Yep. 100%.
if you let them down. By the way, in the background, as we're seeing this text on screen, we see clouds moving around in the background. And those clouds are the only thing not shot on a soundstage in this entire movie. Everything else is on stages.
She isn't coming yet, Toto. Did she hurt you? She tried to, didn't she? Come on, we'll go tell Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. Come on.
All these Kansas scenes were not shot by Victor Fleming because we have a fourth director on the film.
Oh, wow.
Because George Cukor, who had gone over to shoot Gone with the Wind with his buddy Clark Gable, was having fights with Clark Gable, and Clark Gable wanted him off the movie, and so we need someone else to finish Gone with the Wind, and so Victor Fleming left Wizard of Oz to finish Gone with the Wind, and they bring in director King Vidor to shoot another great director.
Yeah.
And so all of the Kansas, all the sepia stuff was actually shot by King Vidor, including Over the Rainbow.
Oh, how interesting. Wow.
It's crazy.
A lot of cooks in this kitchen, but some damn cooks and a nice meal in the end.
And these are sets, but they're great sets in the way that classic old school Hollywood sets are really fun.
Yeah. And I think this is a great intro to her, to Dorothy, right? If you've never seen or read the books, here is a young girl running into frame with her dog. And people love dogs. And she's talking to her dog, connecting with her dog. And so you immediately are invested in this person right from the beginning.
Speaking of dogs, Toto is named Terry. It's a female dog. Terry was discovered because someone left her at the vet because they couldn't pay the bill.
Oof.
And so the dog is just at the vet, and the trainer meets the dog and goes, I like this dog. And that is Toto. And Terry was renamed Toto after this film and had a pretty good Hollywood career in a bunch of other movies, including with like Spencer Tracy and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh, nice.
And they run to the farm through the gate. It's so funny because growing up watching this on TV, I doubt that we could tell that those backgrounds were just the painted wall of the studio.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But you could totally tell now in my beautiful HD or 4K versions, you know. And there we meet Aunt Em, who is Clara Blandick.
An American actress on film, stage, and in theater. This was obviously the most famous role she ever played, but she'd certainly established herself very strongly in theater, then moving into film. She played the mom of Joan Crawford and Joan Blondell during her time. And she's only 8 years older than the actress who plays Glinda the Good Witch, who was supposed to be, it was supposed to be like the companion piece, but they ended up getting another actress to play Glinda. But Auntie Em is essentially supposed to be Glinda the Good Witch in her dream. So, but yeah, this was really the big, and then of course she was in the Marx Brothers. She was in The Big Store with the Marx Brothers. It started with Eve, Can't Help Singing. Love That Brute, but she retired at the age of 74 and went into seclusion living at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, which both you and I know. And she passed away in 1962 at the age of 85 in Hollywood. And she was born in British Hong Kong in 1876, which should let you know how much this woman has witnessed in her life before she passed on.
Aunt Em, just listen to what Miss Gulch did to Toto.
Dorothy, please, we're trying to count.
Oh, but Aunt Em, she hit him.
Don't bother us now, honey. You see, this old incubator's gone bad, and we're like to lose a lot of our chicks.
And Uncle Henry is played by Charlie Grapeman.
Yeah, an American vaudeville actor, Steve. A lot of these actors we're going to talk about in the cast got their starts in vaudeville. And for those of you who don't remember, vaudeville was an incredible time with some phenomenal actors who were establishing themselves before getting into the world of film. He was also a circus performer, a writer, performed on stage as well. He did over 100 motion pictures in the silent era before he even moved into doing quote unquote talkies. He was, people remember him as Grandpa William James in The Grapes of Wrath. He was Jeter Lester in Tobacco Road. He was in Captains Courageous as Uncle Salters, Wang's father in The Good Earth, and California Joe in They Died with Their Boots On. But this is, of course, the most famous role he's ever played. Born in 1869 in Ohio, passed away in 1956 at the age of 86 in Corona, California.
But Aunt Em, Miss Gulch hit Toto right over the back with a rake just because she says he gets in her garden and chases her nasty old cat every day.
I'm not in any way Team Gulch, but I do actually think Dorothy should control her dog a little bit better.
Well, my issue is that, and listen, guys, we're going to be talking about this movie and give our honest reactions to the movie. So there are things we're going to really, really love about the movie, but there's things we're going to also highlight. And one of the things I want to highlight here is Dorothy is kind of an irritating teenager. She's rolled up on them, and they both Auntie Em and Uncle Henry are like, Dorothy, we need to count these chickens because like it's important for our farm. Some of these chickens are dying and things are happening, and we can't lose this because, if you work a farm, every single animal is important on a farm. And part of the ecosystem there that they have to keep going in order to make money and survive. And of course, this is 1939. So this feels like this is around the Dust Bowl times, maybe. And so in my mind, is that right, Steve? Am I right on that? Would I be?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it feels that way. So you can understand that they're like really in a state of hyper fear
Actually,
about what's happening. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The movie is shot at the Dust Bowl time.
Yeah.
The story, I don't know, does not necessarily take place then because the story is written in 1900.
Right. So it does have that energy to it. So you can understand why these two farmers would be really freaking out about how many chicks were there and counting them. But Dorothy is so obsessed about her dog and what happened with the Miss Gulch that it's her needs that are superseding their needs. And I get it. I've never raised a teenager, but I imagine this is what it's like. But like when you're looking at it from the outside, you're like, hey, Dorothy, will you calm down and let them count their chicks? And then they'll get back to your issue. But she does not let it go. She's got to get her answers.
Having a 14-year-old teenager right now, this is exactly par for the course. And then we meet the three guys who work for them, which is Hunk, Hickory, and Zeke, which is the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion.
Yeah.
And, we're going to go into more detail about these actors when we meet them in what I consider to be their real characters.
Yeah.
Even though these are actually the real characters.
What am I going to do about Miss Gulch just because Toto chases her old cat?
Listen, honey, I got them hogs to get in.
Now, this is Bert Lahr, who is going to be the Cowardly Lion, and right now he's working with some hogs.
And again, Dorothy's like, well, since Auntie Em and Uncle Henry won't listen to me, what about these guys? You guys will listen to me. And they're like, listen, we got jobs to do. We're putting together a cart. We got to take care of the hogs. You're seeing them all giving her a little bit of advice about how to deal with it. But Bert Lahr is the one that's like trying to get her to stand up to Ms. Gulch.
There are these little hints. He wants her to stand up because he's the guy about courage.
Right.
And then we have Hunk, who says,
now look at Dorothy. You ain't using your head about Miss Gulch. Think you didn't have any brains at all.
and of course, that is going to be the Scarecrow.
Oh, Hunk, you just won't listen, that's all.
Well, your head ain't made of straw, you know.
I did forget how obvious they were.
Yeah.
I did forget how obvious.
Look, the Wizard of Oz is not subtle.
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
It's but this is this is the thing is this is the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
like I don't think it's almost not fair to judge the Wizard of Oz against Citizen Kane. That's not.
Oh no,
they're not the same thing.
No.
The Wizard of Oz is doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Are you going to let that old gulch heifer try and buffalo you? She ain't nothing to be afraid of. Have a little courage, that's all.
Dorothy, who's like balancing on the rail between the pigsty, falls in and everyone gets a little scared and Zeke carries her out. And then Zeke, who's been talking about courage, is now very, very frightened of the incident.
Why, Zeke, you're just as scared as I am.
Well, here, what's all this jabber-wopping when there's work to be done? I know 3 shiftless farmhands that'll be out of a job before they know it.
Well, Dorothy was walking along.
I saw you tinkering with that contraption, Hickory.
The contraption is like it's a leftover from a previous script in which the character of Hickory was building a tornado fighting device. So they left the line in, but they don't have the thing.
All right, Mrs. Gale. But someday they're going to erect a statue to me in this town.
And the reason they're going to get a statue is because he's figured out how to stop tornadoes.
Yeah.
Now, Dorothy, dear, stop imagining things. You always get yourself into a fret over nothing. Now, you just help us out today and find yourself a place where you won't get into any trouble.
And that is the setup for the song.
Do you suppose there is such a place, Toto? There must be. It's not a place you can get to by a boat or a train. It's far, far away. Behind the moon, beyond the rain.
So this is not only the most famous song in the film, but it is among the most famous songs of all time. It's the last song that they wrote for the show. They knew they needed something here. And the idea came for the songwriters when they're driving around Hollywood and they're driving by Schwab's drugstore, the famous Schwab's drugstore where Lana Turner was discovered. Yep. And they see the bright lights of the neon and it makes them think of a rainbow. And that's how they come up with Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Wow.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Judy Garland, this would be absolutely an irritating teenager, right? I mean, there's something about Judy's wholesomeness that you kind of look past because, even in the scene with the pigs, like, why is she walking along the beam? It's because she wants that attention and she's playing around. Then when she falls in, she's like, oh, this whole thing of like, let me be the center of attention. I need attention. And they save her and all this kind of stuff. But then at the end, they're like, will you just go somewhere that you're not, So I imagine Dorothy's been a lot to handle since she came to this farm for everybody, because she does need a lot of attention. But it's because it's Judy Garland that we just kind of go, oh, I don't care because she's so cool. You just kind of deal with it.
Well, and the sentiment of this song is so universal.
Yes. It's so beautiful.
It applies to everything because all of us want to be somewhere else sometime. When can I get past this trouble?
Right.
It's interesting too, is like up to this point in the world of musicals were generally songbook musicals. We talked about this years and years ago when we talked about Singing in the Rain, which is Arthur Freed, which is Singing in the Rain is a songbook musical. All of those songs had been written previously. I think maybe the one was written for the movie. I don't remember at this point, but like, and what they do is like, we own all these songs. Can we make a story that fits all these songs? Yeah. And so people didn't sing their exact feelings. And that was really changing with shows like Showboat and things like that, where they said, no, this song is for this character at this moment in the film or in the play. And that's really a strong influence of Wizard of Oz. It might be among the first movie musicals where it's really written specifically for the movie, for the character in the moment.
Yeah.
Rather than just a song. And this song so perfectly expresses it. In fact, it so perfectly expresses that this song becomes the model for thousands of things going forward, this is the archetypal I Want song. And the I Want song is, in The Little Mermaid, where she, she's dreaming of being up on the surface. It's it's Belle who wants her time to read. It's, you look at Disney, the I Want song is everywhere, or just in general, someone expressing their desire at the beginning of the movie. Now we know what the movie is about. Right. And this is like I said, this is the archetype, Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
It's so funny, when you talk about that, I wonder, like I was thinking about, we were talking about 80s movies when we did our Back to the Future thing recently, and I was thinking about like Secret of My Success, which was the other Michael J. Fox film that I love from the 1980s. And the opening scene is him like, ending up in the city, coming from the farm, ending up in the city. And he is speaking in certain dialogue and talking about the things that he wants to do and accomplish in the city, right? But at the same time, you're hearing the Night Ranger song, Secret of My Success, playing underneath everything. And the whole song is kind of underlining everything that Michael J. Fox is saying that he wants to accomplish. So in a way, it's a version of the I Want song, but done for the 1980s, and so it's certain ways that they use this that makes films stand out,
I guarantee if you just start thinking about particularly sort of these 4-quadrant or family movies or Disney movies, like you will find the version of the I Want moment in so many of them. And I think King Vidor, who's filming this, not Victor Fleming at this point, he stages this so perfectly because it's so simple.
Yep.
It's just Dorothy on the tractor and Toto behind her, super cute. And it just, because now all you're doing is you're listening to Judy Garland sing.
Yep.
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me.
So much passion in that. And I don't mean passion, overt passion, just the desire of her wanting the things that she wants in her life. It's so touching and moving.
And it's super sweet. Like she, when she reaches out and touches Toto and we see that beautiful godlight streaming down from the clouds.
If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why
And the camera just kind of pulls back on that amazing 2-shot with her and the dog as we finish the song, and they snuggle together. And it's like a perfect movie moment.
Oh, it's a beautiful song. Anyway.
It is. Would you believe that they wanted to cut it out of the movie?
Yeah, I would believe it. I've heard this story from so many different movies or albums in the past. I'm not surprised.
So the first cut of the film is 2 hours, and they knew that was too long, and they wanted to cut it down. It's funny thinking about it now because so many movies are so long right now. But they wanted to cut down. They cut out several musical numbers, and they just were. And this is a classic studio note. I can totally hear this, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as I understand why this note comes, which is they went. The movie gets fun when we get to Oz. We want to get to Oz as fast as possible.
Right.
And that is a classic note. And so they go, this song is kind of slow. It's not very exciting. It doesn't get you, amped up for the film. It's kind of a downer. And so they cut it out. And they had it, the first preview it's in, the second preview they'd cut it out. And Arthur Freed went to L.B. Mayer and said, either that song goes back in or I go.
Wow.
And they put the song back in.
Huh. Sometimes you know when you know.
Yeah. It became Judy Garland's signature song, obviously. Yeah. She did not go anywhere without singing this song. In 2001, it was named the Song of the Century by the National Endowment of the Arts. And in 2004, it was named the #1 movie song of all time by AFI.
Wow.
I mean, I can't argue the point, actually.
There's such a universality to it, Steve, because it's a teenager wanting to go somewhere where she's not a bother to everybody and somewhere where she can be free to be herself and enjoy these things. And clearly it's also like a preview or foreshadowing, just like the Scarecrow talking about the brains and the Lion talking about courage. You have Dorothy talking about wanting to go to a place that's essentially far, far away, a magical fairy tale land where she can kind of be free to be herself and go on her own journey, and I think that's something that is very universal, which is why that song still endures today.
There was something that I discovered when I did the Star Trek podcast with Scott that I'm trying to think about where to say, but I think it really relates to Wizard of Oz, which was the epiphany I had was that part of the greatness of Star Trek, of the original series, is that it combines both conservative and liberal points of view. Is that there are times where it is the captain knows best and he's going to fix the society on this planet and it's militaristic and aggressive, and there's time where it's the opposite. Right. And it's actually the tension, I think, between those things that creates why you can have so many Star Trek fans from all walks of life, because they're represented, but it's not just we're trying to push one agenda. It's we're exploring things.
Yeah.
The thing about The Wizard of Oz is that its two messages are somewhere over the rainbow and there's no place like home. The Wizard of Oz is actually filled with contradictions. The wizard in particular is a contradiction. And it's actually what I've kind of gone is, it's in the contradictions because, and I've seen this many times, is that this is the American fairy tale. And I feel like the contradictions of The Wizard of Oz are the contradictions of America. And there's no place like home and somewhere over the rainbow is a perfect example of the and it's L. Frank Baum. I am driving towards fame and fortune and success and all that stuff. And there's no place like home. You know what I mean? And I feel like, and I'm, there's just and it's all those contradictions is where we can live in this weird way to me,
And yeah. I mean, we had a debate about the ending of Back to the Future on our recent conversation. And it's, because to me, those two things are the arc. There's no place like home, the Over the Rainbow. I want to get away from here.
Yeah.
Someplace that's better. Right. But it's when you're getting away to someplace that's better that you realize how great the thing you had was.
100%.
And it's no place like home. And I think a lot of us, and I can say this as an older man now, I think a lot of us have experienced this in our life. We couldn't get away. We couldn't wait to get away from home. We couldn't wait to get away from our parents, get away from that town, get away from that house. And yet, as we get older, we realize how precious that experience was. It might have been difficult, might have been tough, but there is no place like home because there is a comfort, there's a safety there, and there's memories and experiences. And so when you look back on it, you have a whole different perspective. Like I never appreciated my parents more than when I left. And there's just something about it. You go through the world, you experience life, and you realize, no, that there's something really great here. And I just didn't see it because it was all I knew. And so,
I totally agree. The point I'm trying to make is that it's that one doesn't contradict the other. Yeah. I guess is what I say is that that's totally true. That's my experience as well. But that doesn't mean dreaming of going over the rainbow was wrong.
Nope.
That's the thing, is that they both can live at the same time. Because there's some movies where you have a character who takes the wrong path and has a comeuppance and learns a valuable lesson and then takes the different path. And that the point of that movie is that first path was wrong.
Right.
That's not the point of this movie. It's not dreaming. There's nothing wrong about dreaming about somewhere over the rainbow.
Yeah. I would say Pinocchio is an example of that, right?
Yes.
He runs away from Geppetto, and then he sees what can happen watching those kids turn into donkeys and stuff. And all he wants to do is get back to Geppetto, right? And be a real boy. But it's about getting back to Geppetto.
Well, because all of it was bull. The actors are bull. You're going to get turned into a donkey, and there's terrible things out there. You think it's great, but it's not. That's not true of Oz. Oz is great.
Yeah.
The Scarecrow is great. Glinda is great. Like it's an amazing, incredible place, and there's no place like home.
Right.
That's where it really lives to me. Cut to, it's my favorite theme in the movie. I love this music. Every time the music comes on and you get the witch's theme and it goes, and we get to cut to Margaret Hamilton as Elmira Gulch, who's going to be the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah. American actress, vaudevillian, and educator. She was an educator. She performed for 50 years in entertainment, in theater, film, radio, television. She's from Cleveland, is where she started out, and started doing plays in Cleveland, started doing Shakespeare in Cleveland, got into the movies, playing a bunch of bit parts, and then got her signature part here as the Wicked Witch, and had a very, how can we say this, Steve? A very love-hate relationship with her playing the witch, because, of course, as you talked about with the makeup with Buddy Epson, the makeup with her was pretty brutal as well. The green makeup affected her skin, affected her for a while as well, but also people thought she was the witch. And so there was a lot of, for her dealing with that, people not liking her, people, hey, kids, yelling at her and stuff like that. So she had to come to terms with it and embrace it eventually as she got older, and then would play the witch on certain TV appearances for fun and what have you. So a very complicated relationship with this character, but she is iconic in playing the Wicked Witch.
That is the word, man. Yeah. I mean, there are very few images, silhouettes, that you can recognize, and there are very few villains at the statue of the Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, it's like Darth Vader and a few others that are at that league. Yeah. And her performance is fantastic. I mean, it's I don't even know what to call it, because this is the witch. It is not that she's playing a witch. It's that she creates the image of what a witch is, between the laugh and the skin and the look and the voice and the whole thing.
Yeah.
She told a story, by the way, and again, much like probably the Ray Bolger story, I'm sure this is one she told many times. She's under contract at MGM, and some big producer, calls her up and says, they're interested in you for The Wizard of Oz. And she goes, oh, well, I love the book. For what part? And they said, for the witch. And she goes, the witch? And whoever she was talking to her says, well, what else?
Yeah. She's an amazing woman if you spend time reading about her and what she went through and what she did. Because by the end, she became she served on the Beverly Hills Board of Education from 1948 to 1951. And she was a Sunday school teacher all during the 1950s. So this is a woman who very much cared about giving back to the younger generation, but also loved being able to perform and play these parts as an actress. So, those are rare people, very rare people.
Have you ever seen I bet you it's come up at some point on social media, when she shows up on the Mr. Rogers show?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's such a great moment.
It's great.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, you should check it out, and maybe we'll post a link somewhere. But she comes and just dressed as herself.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rogers, who's the world's sweetest man, is like, we know a lot of kids were very, very frightened by you, and so they have her put on the outfit to demystify it and to make it not scary. And it's such a lovely, lovely moment.
Yeah,
because go ahead.
Finish your point, Stephen.
Because the Wicked Witch is scary.
Yeah.
Scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Yep. She did 4 episodes of that show doing that to kind of like, demystify it, so to speak. And I love that her final role as an actress was in the animated feature Journey Back to Oz, where she played Auntie M. So she got to go from the witch back to Auntie M before she shuffled off this mortal coil, So.
Okay. Well, one of the interesting things, originally, Snow White had just come out.
Yeah.
And the, evil queen in Snow White is very beautiful and kind of forbidding.
Yeah.
And so their initial instinct with the Wicked Witch was to follow Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, to follow that look for the witch.
Right.
So they went to cast Gail Sundergaard, who's an Oscar-winning actress, very beautiful, and they did makeup tests on her.
Wow.
And you can see pictures of her looking very much like in the Snow White film.
Right.
And then they made the decision, we think she shouldn't be beautiful like the Snow White thing. That's too much like Snow White. We need her to be more ugly like a classic witch. And they put her in the ugly makeup, but basically she was still kind of too beautiful. And they're like, we're going to have to work to make you a little uglier to do this part. And she said, you know what? Never mind. And so she walked away. And that's when they turned to Margaret Hamilton.
You know what? I'm good. You guys are awesome. Peace.
I want to see you and your wife right away about Dorothy.
Dorothy? Well, what has Dorothy done?
What's she done? I'm all but lame from the bite on my leg.
Me, she bit you?
No, her dog.
Oh, she bit her dog, eh?
I don't think Uncle Henry likes Mrs. Gulch.
Not even a little bit. And certainly we're going to find out Auntie M really doesn't like Mrs. Gulch.
I love the it's just so obvious that he's messing with her. And I love the moment that he invites her in, but purposely lets go of the gate so it kind of hits her in the butt.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the little details like that. We're inside and she is going on a rant.
That dog's a menace to the community. I'm taking him to the sheriff and make sure he's destroyed.
I mean, she's going to kill Toto.
It's pretty brutal.
Uncle Henry, you won't let her, will you?
Of course we won't. Will we, Em?
Which means it's a little on the fence a little bit. Toto out of it, which I agree. I mean, I think everyone watching this movie is going, you can't kill that cute dog. And this is, as to your point about Auntie M, she says,
How would it be if she keeps him tied up? He's really gentle. With gentle people, that is.
And she has an order from the sheriff and hands the order over, and they look at it, and Henry looks at it, and there's that look between Auntie M and Henry.
We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go. Now you're seeing reason.
Oh, no, I won't let you take him. You go away, or I'll bite you myself.
Dorothy.
And this is one of the keys to her character, which is Dorothy is fierce in protecting other people or animals.
Who she loves.
You wicked old witch. Uncle Henry, Auntie M, don't let him take Joe. Don't let her take him, please.
Let me
Stop her.
Put him in the basket, Henry.
They put the dog in the basket, and Dorothy runs out crying.
The irony of this whole movie in real life is that Margaret became a very good friend to Judy Garland and a mentor. And in fact, as a young actress after this movie, to try to short circuit her mom from yelling at her and berating her, as you alluded to earlier, Steve, she would ask Margaret to come on the set with her for certain movies because Margaret was so caring of her, and so, yeah, I mean, it's the things that you kind of discover about the movie that are really special. And she stayed a lifelong friend with Ray Bolger as well. Margaret Hamilton did. So you have those things, and so, it's a tragedy with Judy Garland, but it's good to know that there were people who were trying to be there for her in those moments, especially, and ironically, the Wicked Witch,
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny, the theater actors and vaudeville actors, and of course, they're jerks in every profession in every way, but when you're walking the boards with people and it's sweaty and it's hot and you gotta get through stuff. And so they stick together in a really lovely way a lot of the time.
Agreed.
But that's not what's happening with Auntie Em and Mrs. Gulch at this moment, because she turns to her and says,
Elmira Gulch, just because you own half the county doesn't mean you have the power to run the rest of us. For 23 years, I've been dying to tell you what I thought of you. And now, well, being a Christian woman, I can't say it.
They must have been in high school together, right? They must have gone to schoolhouse together. You know, Elmira must have been like the prim, proper, you know, arrogant, condescending one, and Em wasn't. You know, come from a poorer family, clearly.
You know what's the difference between Elmira Gulch and the Wicked Witch of the West?
Yeah.
Part of me loves the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
None of me loves Elmira Gulch.
That's a good point. Yes.
She's just an all, you know, because we're in the real world. I'm not romanticizing, you know, Elmira Gulch.
Yeah.
But the Wicked Witch of the West is kind of cool. Cut to, again, that music as she's riding away on the bike, and the basket is there in the back, and it pops open because she didn't tie it down or anything, and Toto just jumps out and runs back.
Toto, darling. Oh, I got you back. You came back. We've got to get away. We've got to run away.
Which brings us to a question from one of our advisory board members, Maria Torres, who says, where and why and how are Dorothy's parents, especially since it sounds like she's been with her aunt and uncle from very early on, maybe dead from childbirth, but they may have gotten her up due to poverty, as that happened often at this time.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts of where the parents are?
I think where Maria landed by the end of that question is where I land. It was poverty. And they're either the parents died, maybe in a dust bowl, you know, hurricane or whatever it was, or they just kind of left the child behind because they couldn't take care of the child anymore. And they had to go and do whatever. And that happens all the time, you know, in that time. And certainly even nowadays, you hear about children being raised by either the grandfather or the grandmother or the aunt and the uncles because the people who had them can't take care of them for any myriad of reasons. So, and I like that it's never really kind of, you know, addressed. There's a mystery in that, which I kind of enjoy.
Someone should do, and maybe we should even do a shirt on this, the complete list of heroic characters that are missing their parents. Luke Skywalker, Peter Parker, you know, Bruce Wayne, Harry Potter, like Superman, on and on and on. It's like the most normal, the best thing you could do is kill off somebody's parents. That's how you make a hero.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yes, sure.
I'm just pointing out the evidence. How many heroes can you think of that have their parents around?
That's true. That's true.
So she's running away with Toto. She comes across this bridge, looks down, and as we're hearing the sounds of Over the Rainbow, we see the cart, the carriage of Professor Marvel, acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe. Let him read your past, present, and future in his crystal ball, and juggling, and sleight of hand. And there we see Professor Marvel, who is also the wizard, and a whole bunch of other things played by Frank Morgan.
Yeah, Frank Morgan started in silent movies, like a lot of these actors did, work in vaudeville, like a lot of these actors did. He worked consistently for 35 years as a character actor in the business. As Steve alluded to, he plays 5 roles in the movie, not only just the wizard, but there, as you said, Professor Marvel, the gatekeeper, the carriage driver, and the palace guard there. He went on to appear after this movie in Shop Around the Corner, which is one of those classic films.
Great film.
The human comedy, Boomtown, Three Musketeers in 1948, and The Stratton Story with Jimmy Stewart. Sadly, he passed away of a heart attack. He'd been a bit of an alcoholic throughout his years, but he passed away of a heart attack while playing Buffalo Bill in Annie Get Your Gun.
Oh, wow.
That, I did not know that he was playing the character of Buffalo Bill in that film, and he was replaced by Louis Calhern. But yeah, he died on set. So, and you know, a lifelong performer dying on set, you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And he's great. And he's great here. I mean, he is so good in this movie. It was so great to reacquaint myself with the greatness of this actor. And so many of these actors in the movie, Steve, I would say, this is like, ironically, their best performances in their entire careers. You know?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is one of the weird things about this movie is that Judy Garland is a star.
Yes, sure.
But like, these are all just workaday actors who come in and just nail it on these parts. Originally, they offered it to Ed Wynn, who turned it down. He thought the part was too small.
He'd be perfect for that. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Wallace Beery was campaigning for it, and they were too busy in negotiations with W.C. Fields to play the part for a long time before that all fell through, and they went with Frank Morgan.
Oh, thank God. I don't think WB
I don't think W.C. Fields could play the levels of this character.
Yeah. Even the guard. I don't think he could have played the guard. Why didn't you say so? I don't think he would have been able to play that.
By the way, so here is a story, and I'm just going to tell you right at the beginning. I'm pretty sure this story is not true, but it was a story told many times. I'm going to tell it to you, which is Frank Morgan and Victor Fleming are at the costume department at MGM, thousands and thousands of coats that they're looking through and pulling through. And they both spot one and go, I think that's the coat for Professor Marvel. That looks like the right coat. Frank Morgan tries it on. It fits him like a glove. He reaches his hand into his pocket, and there he finds a card that says L. Frank Baum. And they reached out to Baum's wife, who was still living in Hollywood at the time, and she confirmed that in fact was his coat that he had lost many, many years ago. This story is almost certainly totally not true. But this is also the problem. We're really with the Cine-Files, but in all eras of filmmaking, but particularly in this era, there was a press department that was making up stories. And those stories had often very little to do with those truth, and they got repeated over and over again.
Let me tell you something, Steve. They're still doing that.
I know.
Okay. There's so many people. In my daily job as a YouTube person hosting shows, the amount of bullshit that these PR people put out about these creatives that fans just gobble up and believe is just amazing, because there's very little truth most of the time to these narratives that they pump out there, but they pump it out there because people are still willing to buy into some of these narratives about their favorite creatives. And so, no surprise.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, obviously we're going to say the things that we learn, that we find on the sources that we find, and we try to make sure that those things are true, but some of it, who knows what we've been told.
You're traveling in disguise. No, that's not right. You're going on a visit. No, I'm wrong. That's right. You're running away.
How did you guess?
Professor Marvel never guesses. He knows.
Apparently, he's telepathic.
Yeah. Or he knows teenagers. Either one. Yeah.
Well, this is what's so funny, because L. Frank Baum was interested in seances and con artists and all of this stuff. And clearly, Professor Marvel is on some level, well, we could say con artist or whatever, but he is, using techniques to figure things out.
Yeah.
They don't understand you at home. They don't appreciate you. You want to see other lands, big cities, big mountains, big oceans.
Why, it's just like you could read what was inside of me.
There was a whole series of podcasts I listened to that was sort of all the tricks that psychics use to go and that they'll put something out as a fishing line. It's like, I think there's a man in your past. No, it's a woman. And you wait and see that if they lean forward a woman, you're like, yes, it is a woman. This is a person. They're older, younger. That's exactly what Professor Marvel's doing right now.
I like that she calls him out about, going to see the kings of Europe. And he's like, kings of what? Oh yes. That thing. Yeah. So, well, it's great. It's perfect.
Well, this is but this is what's so interesting to me about this is there's no question that he's a fake.
Oh yeah.
But he's also a lovely guy who we really like.
Right. Yeah. Because you know what? This is his job. And he's not going to try to take money from a teenager. And he probably has many teenagers that run to him that run away. Maybe he ran away when he first started out. And so he knows that it's better to just guide them back to their family than actually indulge in them running away. So he gently, and you want that kind of character in a movie like this, right? You don't want him to be like, hell yeah, get out of there, sister. There's a better way to do that. And he's such a warm character throughout the whole movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a line much later on when she accuses him as the wizard of being a bad man. And he says, I'm not a bad man. I'm a good man. I'm a bad wizard.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think he is a good man.
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually have magical powers in either world.
Right.
Here or in Oz.
Right.
You'd better close your eyes, my child, for a moment in order to be better in tune with the infinite.
Which he uses as a moment to rifle through her possessions to find a clue. He finds a picture of Auntie M.
What's this I see? A house with a picket fence, and a barn with a weather vane and a running horse.
That's our farm.
Yes. There's a woman. She's wearing a polka dot dress. Her face is careworn.
That's Aunt Em.
And you could see how he's making these deductions and how they're connecting for Dorothy to believe that this guy is absolutely for real.
Yeah.
And then because and I think this part of it is that he does have real insight into people.
Yeah.
And that allows him to do what's right because he knows that she's run away from home.
Right.
And he wants to get her back home. That is his goal.
Yeah.
So he says,
Why, she's crying. Someone has hurt her. Someone has just about broken her heart.
Me?
Well, it's someone she loves very much. Someone she's been very kind to. Someone she's taken care of in sickness.
which is a classic stab that you're 90% sure is going to hit. You know, he doesn't know that Aunt Em took care of her in sickness, but of course it's very likely. And Dorothy says,
What's she doing now?
She's what's this? Well, she's putting her hand on her heart. Well, she's dropping down on the bed.
Oh, no.
this is some heavy guilt.
I know.
Professor Marvel is laying on Dorothy.
Oh, I've got to go home right away.
But what's this? I thought you were going along with me.
Oh, no, I have to get to her right away.
Huh?
Come on, Toto. Come on.
And she grabs Toto and she runs out, and now the wind is picking up.
Better get under cover, Sylvester. There's a storm blowing up, a whopper. To speak in the vernacular of the peasantry. Poor little kid. I hope she gets home all right.
You love him, I think, for that, don't you?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very caring to his horse as well.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just got this natural warm energy, you know, and he deals with whatever's happening in a calm way, a very caring way. Yeah.
I think the thing you said before has really struck me, which is that you said this is his job.
Yeah.
Is like normally, if you think of a con artist,
Right.
you go, or someone who's a snake oil salesman or those are criminals.
Right.
They are bad people.
Right.
That's not how you feel here.
No.
This is his day job is telling fortunes and, juggling, and he's a showman.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's his job. We get back to the farm. Now the wind is really picking up.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
This is a groundbreaking special effects movie, as you can imagine. Buddy Gillespie is the guy in charge of special effects. And this twister was one of the big things of like, how the hell are we going to do this? How do we pull this off? Because I don't know if you know this, but wind is invisible and clouds are hard to control. So they're like trying to figure out, and he's out driving around in the country one day and he looks up and it's like on a farm or something. And there's like a windsock, the fabric in the wind, and it's blowing in the wind, and he's watching and he's going, as the fabric moves, it kind of has that feeling of a tornado. And so that is what this is. This is a muslin cone strapped from ceiling to floor.
Wow.
And then they have Fuller's Earth, which is this powder that I remember because we used it when you had to use your filter in your swimming pool. You would use this stuff, but it's very powdery. And so it's at the bottom and at the top. And the thing is on two tracks, one at the top and one at the bottom, that they can move separately. So the top can move stretching it one way and the bottom can catch up, which gives it sort of that weird moving top-bottom sense that a tornado has. And then they have the Fuller's Earth on the top and the bottom that they're agitating. So everywhere it goes, it's spewing out dust, which makes it not look like fabric and makes it look much more like a real thing. And I think, yes, obviously it looks like a special effect.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And by the way, this twister was used in many, many films after, because they had the special effect in the vault. And so when they needed a tornado, they just cut it into other movies.
Oh, wow.
This is all really, really scary. The wind is crazy.
Yeah.
Dorothy manages to get to the farm. The screens flies out as she get there. It looks pretty dangerous. Goes outside to the storm cellar and tries to get in and stomps on it and calls, and they do not hear her. She goes back in the house. Window smashes over her head, knocks her out, and then everything goes nuts. The house flies up. The room is spinning outside the window. This is rear projection. And we see like the chicken coop, and it becomes really surreal.
Yeah.
She sits up and wakes up, or maybe not. Maybe she's just still asleep. And she looks at Toto, and then she looks out the window, and there's a woman in a rocking chair who waves.
Yeah.
And then a cow goes by and moos. And then we see two guys in a rowboat who doff their hat to her. I think, to me, there's a lot of connections in this movie to the silent era. And I think there's a lot of connections to just the fun of seeing crazy things happen on the screen.
Yeah.
Going back to George Milius and the Earth to the Moon and Charlie Chaplin films, and just the the joy of playing with film. And I feel like that's what's happening in this scene.
100%. And I like that they build to Miss Gulch riding by on the bike. Like we have to see all these other things to add to the fantasticality of it all, or the fantastical nature of it all, rather. And then we see Miss Gulch, which is great.
And then we hear that music, and then we see her on the bike.
Yeah.
Oh, Miss Gulch!
She's riding by, and then she gets closer and transforms, and it's a great transformation.
Wow.
They did this dissolve just right and got things lined up so well. And when she transforms into the witch, it's one of the great film moments for me.
It's pretty scary too.
Dude, I was behind the couch, before, from 6 years to earlier.
Yeah.
When the witch popped out, I was behind the couch. Maybe by 7, I could be in front of the couch. But
well, I think it's great too, because like you had the Scarecrow, you had the Lion put pretty obvious references to where they're going, right? With Gulch, you don't have that. There's no obvious I can't wait to be a witch. Now Dorothy calls her a witch or anything. So there's a little bit of a hint, but it's not overt in what she is saying, Gulch is saying, right? It isn't until she flies by that you get the foreshadowing of who she's going to be. And it's such a great way to do that. You're caught up in it for sure.
I'm not saying that I don't like the "it was all a dream" part of Wizard of Oz, because I think it works. I probably wouldn't have done it because that's not what's in the book, and I probably, if I were making this movie, I wouldn't have done it. There are so many moments because of the "it's all a dream" thing, and this one being the best, I think, that so work. Yep. Like her turning from the villain of the real world into the really scary villain of the Oz world is just really, and Dorothy's reaction to it is great.
Yeah.
It's really a crazy creative idea, to do it this way.
Positioned in the sky.
Yeah.
It's a straight, flat, horizontal. She's at an angle, riding up the broom. It's great. I love the shot.
And she screams, and now things are going even crazier. The house is falling and falling. It's at this low angle, and the edit, I will say, the structure and the edit of how you go from the falling house to when it lands and this quiet and the stillness is just perfect filming.
I like that the way she lands, it's so abrupt. Yeah. And you hear her go like, oh, it's almost like she senses something bad has happened because of her reaction to it. It is so fast.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, when I was looking at this time, I was like, oh, wow, listen to her and what have we done?
She gets up, she moves out of the bedroom into the main room. And as she does, obviously we're still in the sepia world.
Yeah.
And the person that steps into this main room heading towards the door is not Judy Garland. This is Judy Garland's body double because we are no longer shooting in sepia black and white film. Right. We are shooting in color film because we're about to see Munchkinland. Yeah. But so in order to pull this off, what they have done is they've taken Judy Garland's body double and they put her in an exact replica of the dress, except the dress is entirely in sepia tones. There's no color in the dress. Oh. They've colored her skin with sepia colored skin. Right. They've colored everything, her whole body, her hair, everything is faked to look like this is shot in a black and white sepia film stock. But it's actually being shot in color film. And Judy Garland is standing directly behind her in the white and blue dress.
Right.
Fully in color. So what happens is she steps forward, the body double, opens the door, then steps out of frame, and then Judy Garland in the colored dress steps into frame as we step into Munchkinland. We talked about the iconic nature of the witch.
Yeah.
The blue and white gingham dress and the basket of Dorothy Gale from Kansas is also iconic.
Yeah.
Like that image, you can see it in a cartoon. You can see it all over the place. That is Dorothy.
Yep.
But that's invented for the film. And also very much invented by George Cukor's change of the costume and makeup style after the other director was kicked off. That's where this comes from, those 2 days.
Wow.
I cannot express. I don't think people today could understand what this felt like in 1939 to go from sepia to color in this film. Technicolor had been around for a while. There had been some silent films that used, and they would do 2-strip Technicolor. The way Technicolor works is it's essentially 3 film cameras built into one. So instead of having, what you have is 3 film cameras all shooting black and white film. You have a red one, a blue one, and a green one. And the red one has a red filter on it, so everything is red. And the blue one, they have different filters on them. So they're only recording one color channel. So they record all the red information, and then they record all the blue information, and they record all the green information. And when you combine these, you get a color image. That is and originally they did 2-strip Technicolor early on, and they used it, and it was a trick.
Yeah.
It was a fun, cool thing. There had only been maybe 6 or 7 full features done in color at this time. And none of them were The Wizard of Oz. The standard was black and white or sepia. And so when it goes from sepia to color, it was mind-boggling for audiences at this time.
Even as a kid, when you're watching it the first time, you're like, oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
What a nice trick.
And what's interesting too is the songwriters, basically the songs that they wrote became the leitmotifs used in the film. So at this moment, we're hearing a little bit of Somewhere Over the Rainbow as she steps out into Munchkinland. And the camera moves off Dorothy, up through the trees, almost to the wall where you could see all the. I mean, Munchkinland looks really cool. It's about 1/4 scale, and it is unlike anything I think that had ever been put on film before this.
And I have to believe that, the Willy Wonka. I have to believe Willy Wonka's design was influenced by
totally
some of the Munchkin stuff, the vibrancy of the Munchkin stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they really made a decision, and this is similar to decisions that were made in television when television went color. Was they're like, well, we need to put out things that are really colorful.
Yeah,
we got to show off the new technology, which is why Star Trek has those primary colors, because it was rated color TV coming on. It's like, we want to show off these colors, and you think of shows like Bonanza and stuff like that. It's like they had bright, strong colors,
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Talk about a banger of a line that's going to get used for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we see a glowing ball float towards Dorothy. She backs up as it changes color, and there is Glinda the Good, played by Billie Burke.
Yeah, Burke was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress back in 1 year earlier, 1938, for playing Emily Kilbourne in Merrily We Live. She was actually married to Broadway producer and impresario Florence Ziegfeld Jr. from 1914 until his death in 1932. Why is that important? Well, because in 1936, 3 years earlier than The Wizard of Oz, MGM filmed The Great Ziegfeld, which won an Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Actress, Louis Rainier playing his common-law wife. And she was a character in the film, Billie Burke, because she'd been married to him. And they refused to cast her in the film because they said that she was too old. Myrna Loy played her instead in the film, and I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, wow.
She had been offered a role in Gone with the Wind, Aunt Pittypat, but she turned it down. George Cukor offered her the role when he was directing it. And then, she always had this energy and power in her work, and kept working for a long time. She got involved in she was in the original Father of the Bride series in 1950, and Father's Little Dividend in 1951, directed by Vincente Minnelli. And then also portrayed Mrs. Ernest, Daisy Stanley, in the 1942 film The Man Who Came to Dinner. So an interesting career. But of course, nothing, again, just about everybody else, except for maybe Judy in the film, nothing eclipsed what she did in The Wizard of Oz as Glinda the Good Witch.
What's so interesting to me, one of the things I noticed, particularly with her, is there are certain kind of voices that you don't hear very much anymore that were very common. And her sort of bubbling, very feminine voice is a very 30s voice.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch? Who, me? I'm not a witch at all. I'm Dorothy Gale from Kansas. I
think that line, in terms of what George Cukor told Dorothy, or told Judy about how to play this part, this is the key line. Yeah. It's to not play Dorothy as special, although Dorothy is a very special person.
Yeah.
It is the everyman quality or every girl quality of Dorothy that makes her work.
Well, I'm a little muddled. The Munchkins call me because a new witch has just dropped a house on the Wicked Witch of the East. And there's the house, and here you are, And that's all that's left of the Wicked Witch of the East.
And we see those ruby slippers, which, as I said, are silver in the book.
Yeah.
And again, and by the way, why did we switch them to ruby silvers? It's not ruby slippers. It's not because of the gold standard.
Yeah.
It's because we're in Technicolor.
Wow.
You know, silver wouldn't pop on Technicolor the way red does.
Yeah.
I think Dorothy manages to get past the fact that she killed somebody pretty easily, as it should be. That's not a criticism. It's just we're not gonna linger on that too much.
Yeah.
And so what the Munchkins want to know is, are you a good witch or a bad witch?
But I've already told you, I'm not a witch at all. Witches are old and ugly. What was that?
The Munchkins. They're laughing because I am a witch. I'm Glinda, the Witch of the North.
You are?
So Dorothy's kind of put her foot in her mouth at this point.
Oh, I beg your pardon, but I've never heard of a beautiful witch before.
Only bad witches are ugly.
I mean, this is the common way of looking at the world for most of human history.
In the 1930s, I guess, yes.
I'm going with most of human history. Ugliness is a punishment for bad people. And beauty is a reward for good people. You can find that in so much of literature and mythology and history.
Yeah.
And frankly, still today, you name how many hideously ugly people have been elected president. Like physical attractiveness, people judge you by your appearance so much.
True.
So even though this is a ridiculous thing to say, it does reflect the way people think, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's true.
But if you please, what are Munchkins?
The little people who live in this land. It's Munchkinland, and you are their national heroine, my dear. It's all right. You may all come out and thank her. Come out, wherever you are, and meet the young lady who fell from a star.
The Munchkins, John.
I don't know what you can say. I mean, we could go name by name with all these Munchkins, but this is a fascinating story about how they all came to be a part of it and, worked hard. And this is still something people reference nowadays when talking about little persons and the work they do in multiple ways in Hollywood and how they don't want to be abused and don't want to be overlooked. And there's a lot of drama involved with what happened with them coming on board with The Wizard of Oz, and then the after effects of being a part of this movie and what it represented. And I can't help again but think that the Oompa Loompas were kind of influenced by the Munchkins.
100. They had to be.
Yeah,
they had to be.
Yeah.
So Leo Singer is the casting guy who's in charge of putting together this group, and they are going to gather, which it is, and I believe still is, the largest theatrical gathering of little people ever assembled. I've seen numbers, usually the number is 124. I've seen numbers, as high as 130 and as low as 116. But the way this happened, because this is a big movie.
Yeah.
And so there's some movies that, humans don't really know all the movies that are being shot at any given time. You're not informed about it, except for some movies. So today, when they're going to shoot a new Star Wars movie, a new Marvel movie or something, we hear, they started production on blank.
Yeah.
That's what this was like, and that's what Gone with the Wind was like, shooting at the same time. These were big public things for casting, for production, for all this stuff that they wanted to be public.
Yeah.
So the search for the Munchkins was a very public search. They put articles in newspapers and ads everywhere across the country because there weren't enough in Hollywood. Yeah. And then when they started to gather this cast together, they had trains chartered with signs on them saying heading to Munchkinland. Like this, and reporters would come out and take pictures. Yeah. And for a lot of these people, for a lot of them are younger, a lot of them, are teenagers. And for many of them, showing up to film The Wizard of Oz was the first time they had ever seen another little person.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a profound experience. And none of them ever, because there had never been an assembly like this, been in a space where they were kind of the majority.
Yeah.
And it was apparently a really profound experience in many ways, some positive, some definitely negative for all of them.
Yeah. And some of them came even from Europe, and there was some legendary tales of behavior on set from these little people. Judy Garland came out and said things like she called them, quote, the little drunks, because they would get drunk after every shoot day. But of course, some of the Munchkins who were there pushed back and said there was only a few of them who got a little inebriated at times after things. But yeah, like you said, Steve, there was the age ranges varied from teenagers to older people and what have you. And so, like you said, they were all brought in. So it must have been a hell of an experience. And there's even a fun little, well, not fun, but kind of a middling little comedy from Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher called Over the Rainbow or Under the Rainbow.
Under the Rainbow.
Yeah, where they play people at the time while this film is shooting, and you see a bunch of little people in the movie who are messing with them, which I think is very funny.
So I watched it many times, Under the Rainbow, as a kid because it was on Showtime or whatever. There was some channel it was on a lot.
Yeah.
And I love Chevy Chase. I thought it was great. And a few years ago, it might have been, I feel like it was connected to the Cine-Files for some reason, that I went and watched the trailer of Under the Rainbow, which is on YouTube. It looks horrendously terrible. Oh, yeah. It's like I haven't watched it since in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
But boy, does it look like a rough time. And then we have this little intro to the song where Glinda is singing about Dorothy and what happened. And then it gets handed over to Dorothy. And I love this little piece of music.
It really was no miracle. What happened was just this. The wind began to switch, the house to pitch, and suddenly the hinges started to unhitch. Just then, the witch, to satisfy an itch, went flying on her broomstick, thumbing for a hitch.
I love Kip Harbaugh is the lyricist. I love the way he plays with words in this movie. It's just so much fun. And I really think Tom Lehrer, who, as you know, is one of my heroes, it never occurred to me to listen to this. I think this is where Tom Lehrer learned a bunch of his lyrical style, is playing with words in this way.
Yeah, I think they shine the most in these Munchkin songs. I think their lyricism and the music shines the most. Look, obviously, Somewhere Over the Rainbow was a classic and all of that. But the inventiveness is what you're alluding to, Steve. And the inventiveness in these lyrics and the way they're put together are so fun and joyful and interesting. And especially when you get like the judge and the coroner and all these, and the mayor, all these people come in with their particular dialogue sung. It's so great and inventive and funny.
Speaking of which, we have two, because that's what's going to happen is we're going to have each of these kind of groups of Munchkins come up.
We thank you very sweetly for doing it so neatly. You've killed us so completely that we thank you very sweetly.
And you will notice that the Munchkin voices are, sound different.
Yeah.
And I believe, though, that these two are the only two voices that are actually from the little people playing those parts.
Oh.
Everything else is dubbed in or pre-recorded. Oh, wow. Frequently, I believe, with helium to give it that sound some of the time. And one of the other things, too, in the way they do these songs is it's not like they're separate songs. It's like you kind of roll from one song piece to another song piece frequently. Because we went into like the intro thing and then went into this really fast witch, titch, hitch thing that Dorothy sings. And now we go into a little Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
Let the joyous news be spread. The wicked old witch at last is dead.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead.
Costumes here are amazing.
Amazing.
They're just so well constructed and built, and they're unique. And everyone has these vibrant different colors. These color combos are so great. The hairstyles, the fake hair on top of the head, all of the stuff they're doing there is really amazing.
Well, the costume guy is he's a one-name dude. He's named Adrian, although his real name is Adrian Adolph Greenberg. One of the most influential Hollywood designers of the 30s and 40s. He actually designed a bunch of movies that you've mentioned in some of these. So a bunch of these people were in his costumes, like Great Ziegfeld he designed, Romeo and Juliet he designed Grand Hotel, Strange Interlude, We Live, Anna Karenina, Philadelphia Story, Pride and Prejudice, Rope. I mean, this is a huge designer, very important. And he really wanted, all of these are handmade. All of these are original. And they don't look like anything else that's ever been put on film before.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Including, by the way, speaking of costumes, I love as the camera is booming up that we have these super cute kids waking up in the flower,
Oh, yeah.
There's all sorts of little details like that. And that, as we said many times, great movies are made on little details. And there's so many in this scene, little costumes, little moments. And now we have a big, huge camera move as the soldiers are marching and the Munchkins are all coming out and the folks are cheering. And this is the thing, I think, particularly in this section that's really noticeable, is the camera moves are great.
Yeah.
And they're very complicated. And one of the things that happened, what we've discussed before, is that as the silent era is ending, filmmaking was really hitting its stride. They've really figured out how to move the camera around and all this filmmaking technique, and it's really powerful. And then sound comes along, and sound screws all that up because you can't do these camera moves because you can't record the sound because they'll make too much noise. And the sound equipment is huge, and you had to have cameras that were in these huge boxes to quiet them because they made too much noise. When you look at film from the early sound era and compare it to the late silent era, you'll go, wow, the silent era is so much more dynamic visually because all that gets crushed in the early 30s. Yeah. By the time you get to Wizard of Oz, they've worked some of it out. But they still have this, as I said, the Technicolor camera is really 3 film cameras built into one camera. It's over 400 pounds. It's like the size of 2 big refrigerators put together. I mean, this thing is huge.
Wow.
And so all of the things that they're doing when they're doing crane shots, they're moving a 400-pound giant camera to do all this stuff. So all of the technique that's happening is super hard and technical, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Again, if you're going to bring this classic to life, you've got to motivate everybody. And I imagine they were self-motivated to bring the best of themselves to bringing these worlds to life. And this is a massive introduction to a world with all of these different characters, all of these different sets of the characters within them, and then all the designs that are going on with the houses and everything like that. So, and then the costumes, like, it's just amazing how they made it all work. And you can tell by, as you were mentioning just now, all the camera techniques and the camera moves that get you as an audience to be really transfixed by what's happening here throughout the whole sequence.
I think it looks amazing. And well, the other thing you need is because you have these Technicolor cameras and the film is fairly slow, which means you need a lot of light.
Right.
So it's like things we talked about when we talked about Citizen Kane is they brought in like every light in the studio. I mean, there's so much light on this thing. 2 things. One is it's really freaking hot, like 110 more. And you got all these actors with lots of makeup and heavy, heavy costumes. So that's a problem. But the other problem is Culver City, which is where this, was shot. They're having brownouts because they're using so much power.
Right.
So, because I mean, literally, it's like half a city worth of power.
Yeah.
The Southern California Edison, which is the local power company, they ended up building a separate relay station just to give enough power to support the Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just crazy. They had they put a whole fire department on the set essentially because they were using so much electricity that they were scared that some bad stuff was going to happen.
Right.
The estimate is that they spent for this film on electricity alone $225,000, almost 10% of the budget just to pay for electricity.
Jesus,
isn't that nuts?
That's crazy.
And then we get the girl Munchkins and the boy Munchkins. So we have.
We represent the Lullaby League, the Lullaby League, the Lullaby League, and in the name of the Lullaby League, we wish to welcome you to Munchkinland.
Which I think are actually little girls.
One of the things they did is, so some of them are young little people, and then for people that were way in the background, frequently are just kids.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so they did whatever they could get away with.
Right.
And then after the Lullaby League happens, the music shifts.
Yeah.
And these kids, what I love about them is they kind of look like old men, but they kind of look like kids.
Yeah.
And we get.
We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, and in the name of the Lollipop Guild, we wish to welcome you to Munchkinland.
I love the Lollipop Guild. That's my favorite of all
Yes.
the Munchkins. I mean, just the look of them, the hands in the pockets, the kick as they walk, and even the sneers. It's
The little twitch in the face.
twitch.
Yeah.
It's all great. It's also great. It reminds you of, like, I guess from that time, the Bowery Boys or
Totally.
that kind of idea, right? The Dead End Kids or the whatever it was that were called. And so it's got that kind of toughness to them, which I really appreciate. But the fact that they're handing her a lollipop after acting so tough, there's a great little like twist in that. So, yeah.
And there is a huge build as all the Munchkins join in. And the celebration is growing and the camera move is great. And we're moving to the center of the square where Glinda is as the camera is craning up. And just at the climactic moment where we're going to hit the climactic note of this great happy song, there is a burst of red flame and the Wicked Witch of the West appears.
Just when she was feeling loved and just like she was asking for, right? She wanted to go to a place where she was accepted and loved and like she was lauded and felt really welcomed. Just when she's feeling good, bang.
And this is as old school a special effect. This is the kind of special effects that L. Frank Baum liked to do in the theater.
Yeah.
You know, this is a trapdoor and a big thing of smoke and a big thing that shoots flames, and the smoke covers up the trapdoor as she comes out. And I rewound this and went frame by frame, and I think it is seamless. You really can't see it.
100% seamless, Steve. You're so right.
Yeah.
And the timing, again, this is what makes great films. The second you think something is one thing, it's immediately something else. It immediately shocks you right out of that feeling. And the fact that we're just about to feel really good for Dorothy and are enjoying this. Oh, yeah, that's right. She killed a witch. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Wicked Witch is coming. And coming out of the red. And then everyone, I don't know if she like killed all the Munchkins or knocked them out because they're all just kind of lying there face down on the ground, not moving. And then eventually they start to move up. Yeah, eventually they start to, but initially the shot, it looks like she's kind of blown them up with a bomb.
Who killed the Witch of the East? Was it you?
No, it was an accident. I didn't mean to kill anybody.
I just wish Dorothy would have looked over at Glinda. Bitch, how many fucking witches are there in this place? You didn't want to tell me that she had a sister?
I mean, what's really funny, there's certain stories where it's all good because of the way it works out. Everybody did the right thing. Yeah. But I got some Glinda questions. I mean, we have Glinda questions coming later from Maria. And now we get the classic phrase from the Wicked Witch.
Well, my little pretty, I can cause accidents too.
Well, my pretty is so iconic. It's again, this is an iconic character, and she says iconic things. You know, like I bet people will be saying "Well, my pretty" and doing the witch's laugh, maybe for 1,000 years.
Oh yeah,
and that's from Margaret Hamilton.
Yep.
Aren't you forgetting the ruby slippers?
The slippers. Yes, the slippers.
And she goes back to where those feet are and she reaches for them. This always freaked me out as a kid. The shoes disappear and the feet shrivel up.
Yeah, curling under the house.
Ugh.
Yeah. But again, Glinda, what the fuck? I didn't ask to have the slippers on my feet. Why are you putting me in between you two?
Too late. There they are, and there they'll stay.
And by the way, just the way Dorothy turns her foot, that little ankle turn, is iconic, you know, as so much of this movie is.
Give me back my slippers. I'm the only one that knows how to use them. They're no use to you.
Keep tight inside of them. Their magic must be very powerful, or she wouldn't want them so badly.
The fact that she says their magic, this is where like little bits of writing make a difference. Their magic must be very powerful, means she doesn't know what the magic is.
Right. Yeah.
Very well. I'll bide my time. And as for you, my fine lady, it's true, I can't attend you here and now as I'd like. But just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
She's so good.
She's great.
Margaret is so good, bro. The close-ups are so perfect, and she's so believable. The way they accented her nose to make it a little bit more pronounced, all of it works so well to accompany her performance. And it's chilling. It is scary.
We've already heard about what happened to Buddy Epson. So for the witch to disappear, she steps back on that exact same trapdoor.
Yeah.
She's going to go down through the trapdoor, and then they're going to release the flames and the smoke. And they've worked this out many, many times for the timing that, you know, she steps off and there's a dude who triggers the flame and he has to make sure that she's clear before he triggers the flame, and they practice it a bunch and then they go do it. And I believe it is on the take that is in the movie. The fire dude went too soon. Margaret Hamilton is coming down through the trapdoor and suddenly she just notices that it got really hot. And she didn't realize how bad it had been.
Right.
And she steps out, but she's wearing this copper makeup, which is what gives the green skin. And she's wearing this wig. And her makeup and the wig caught on fire.
Oh,
Her
jeez.
clothes caught on fire. She had 2nd-degree burns on her face and 3rd-degree burns on her arms, I believe. It was really bad and very, very scary. And she was pulled off the set and was in the hospital for several weeks. And it sounds like this traumatized her in a serious way.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which comes back a little bit later on.
I'm afraid you've made rather a bad enemy of the Wicked Witch of the West. The sooner you get out of Oz altogether, the safer you'll sleep, my dear.
Bitch, I made it. Maybe how did I make an enemy out of them? Again, I go back to this. Like, she is lining her up in some bad ways, Glinda. The whole situation. I get why they created the Wicked musical now, because I mean, Glinda is like really sus.
Well, and
she's a little sus.
And the wizard too. I mean, when we get to the wizard, this, I totally see how they spin it that way.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd give anything to get out of Oz altogether. But which is the way back to Kansas? I can't go the way I came.
No, that's true. The only person who might know would be the great and wonderful Wizard of Oz himself.
And everyone just hearing the name Wizard of Oz bows.
Wizard of Oz? Is he good or is he wicked?
Oh, very good, but very mysterious.
Man, the people of Oz are very trusting.
Yes. or they're afraid.
Yeah. Or dumb.
Yeah, or dumb, yeah.
Yeah. Because Glinda is a witch. She has magic powers.
Yeah.
But she hasn't sussed out that Oz is a fake.
Unless
that's all part of her Machiavellian plan.
Yeah, unless she's in league with Oz. Again, I understand why they wrote Wicked. There are holes here to explore, and
How do I start for Emerald City?
It's always best to start at the beginning, and all you do is follow the yellow brick road.
And then I love the setup. I mean, the build to follow Yellow Brick Road is so great. And all of the people coming up and saying, follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
Follow the yellow brick road. 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 Follow the yellow brick road.
All of those voices, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, and this song didn't really exist. This is what I mean by it's sort of fragments. The song is We're Off to See the Wizard. That's where we're trying to get to.
Right.
But we put this little Follow the Yellow Brick Road fragment kind of at the beginning to just do it a little bit to get where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And then she starts to skip with Toto as she goes down the Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
And by the way, so every skip, because we're going to skip a lot in this movie, every time we're off to see the wizard, we're going to skip. Every skip is a slightly different step.
Oh.
They change them for each one, which I think is kind of an amazing little detail.
Right.
And we get to, we're off to see the wizard.
You're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You'll find he is a whiz of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does.
I think there's a reason why these were the songs I memorized the first. Because there's it's the lyrics thing. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You'll find he is a whiz of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a wonderful whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. Right. It feels good in your mouth,
Well, and it plays on you as a child.
Yes.
The simplicity of the words, but the rapidity and the rhyming and the patterns and all of that. And they're fun words to say. So for a child, you're like, you're into that kind of thing. And so it stays in your mind forever as you get older, kind of like this book.
Yeah.
I mean, as a child, it stays with you forever, And so I think that was the genius, as you were alluding to, of the lyrics here for these songs.
Yeah. It's different movies become great for different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like there are things in this movie that I don't think make sense, and there are things in this movie that are weird and kind of like what was that?
Yeah.
But things like he is a whiz of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was, is just great.
Right.
That makes me happy in a very specific way.
Yeah, and if you compare it to like Ease on Down the Road, right?
Yeah.
The lyrics for Ease on Down the Road work for that particular movie. They're not quite as snappy in how they do it, but it's for that particular type of approach, and it works so well, and you have to match Follow the Yellow Brick Road. You got to hit that at least when you create, and He's on Down the Road really does.
Huge, crazy crane shot of Dorothy skipping in the foreground with all the Munchkins in the background as we're moving forward in this amazing set. And then the Munchkins stop and we cut to the reverse shot where we see Dorothy walking away, where it's so, particularly in the HD, so clearly she is walking towards a wall.
Yeah. Yes. Skipping all the way. The way. Yeah.
And this is, as she leaves Munchkinland, it's 33 minutes into the movie. It's basically exactly 1/3. We've gotten to the end of Act 1.
Yeah.
Which is, we know what this movie's about. She is trying to get home by going to see the wizard. She has to follow the yellow brick road, and the Wicked Witch is trying to get the ruby slippers. It's all very well set up.
Yeah. And Glinda's put her in this position. Let's make that.
Well, that brings us to our next question from Maria Torres, who says, what's Glinda up to?
Yeah. What is Glinda up to?
She says, this is what I like. Is she pulling a Gandalf, letting Frodo do the journey with the one true ring? And when Maria said this, I was thinking about it. And I was like, well, wait, what does he do? He finds the most powerful weapon of the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than take it himself, he leaves it with this ordinary person, knowing that the most dangerous thing in the world is going to come after Frodo. That's exactly what Glinda does.
Right.
And then Gandalf goes off and researches to find out what that weapon is.
Right.
And Glinda, who clearly doesn't know what the shoes can do at the beginning of the movie, because she says, oh, they must be very powerful.
Yeah.
But she does know what the shoes can do at the end of the movie. So I actually think Maria's right. I think she is pulling a Gandalf.
Yeah.
She's putting this weapon with this other person while she goes off to do some research and find out what's really going on.
Yeah. It's a little messed up.
It's kind of messed up.
Anything could have happened to Dorothy here when dealing with the Wicked Witch. And there's flying monkeys. Like, there's a lot Dorothy and her crew have to overcome in order to, prove Glinda's hypothesis or whatever she might be having in this whole situation. So
I know that we live in an incredibly safety conscious world today. Far more and more too safety conscious in many, many ways, possibly, I believe. Yeah. But man, just go on this long journey by yourself in a direct, with a Wicked Witch chasing you. Yeah. See you later.
Wearing some tight ass slippers that you never worn before, because you have to what do you call it? You have to wear slippers for a long time and get the bruises on your feet and get the blisters so that you can stretch them out a little bit. So yeah.
Actually, this is another interesting Lord of the Rings comparison, which is when Frodo when we see whatever his name is, who cuts the ring off, Isildur, who cuts the ring off Sauron's finger, the giant ring shrinks in his hand perfectly to fit him.
Yes.
I have always believed that those ruby slippers fit perfectly on Dorothy's feet, magically. I don't know why, but I've always believed that.
Yeah. What was she doing with the slippers, too? That's the other part of it. Not Dorothy the witch,
I don't know, but I do know that we're going to learn a lot more about them in part 2 of Wicked coming up.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get some more backstory.
Yep.
And as Dorothy begins her journey on the yellow brick road to meet the wonderful Wizard of Oz, it is a perfect time to end part 1 of our exploration of the Wizard of Oz. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so please visit us on our Facebook page. If that's your social media. If you're more social on Twitter or X, it's Cine_Files there. It's the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram, if that's your thing. If you want to buy or stream The Wizard of Oz along with every other film we've ever reviewed, please do so at cinefiles.net. They're all there. If you want to support the show, listen to our ad-free episodes, our Cine-Files shorts, or join our advisory board. That's at patreon.com/thecine-files. Apple Podcasts, you can get the ad-free versions of the show and the shorts, no advisory board. You can also subscribe to the show at all the podcast places if you haven't already. And please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. They very, very much help. And if you want to reach me, it's SR Morris on Twitter. John, how about you?
Yeah, you can always reach me at the Rocha Says on all social media platforms. And please head on over to my YouTube channel for other conversations about movies, TVs, and TV shows and entertainment. That's youtube.com/John Rocha Says, the John Rocha channel. Thank you guys so much. Steve, it's been so much fun. Can't wait to jump into part 2.
Absolutely. And that's going to come next Friday right here on the Cine-Files.